Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My sister keeps stealing from me, ends up regretting it. Okay, so I, 14, female, have a sister who's 16 who I'll call S. She constantly steals from me and messes up my things. I've tried talking to my parents about it, but they just shrug it off and say that my sister does things like that. It's gotten so bad that I have to hide or move valuable items out of the house in fear that she'll break or steal them. 3 weeks ago, I received money from my aunt and friend for my birthday. I was excited because I've wanted AirPods for a while now, and I finally had enough money to get them. I kept the money in a box and put it in my drawer. About a week ago, I wanted to go to the gas station, so I went to get the money, but when I checked, it wasn't there. I went and asked my mom if she had seen it, to which she replied yes. She told me that my sister went snooping in my room and wanted the money, and my mom didn't have the heart to say no. So she let her have it. I went to my sister's room and demanded she give me my money back. She told me that she had already spent it and that I should have hidden it better if I didn't want it to be stolen. I was livid. I stormed to my room and stayed there for the rest of the day. 2 days ago, while out shopping with my aunt, she asked if I had gotten the AirPods that I had been wanting. I told her no, and that mom allowed sister to take the money I was going to use to buy it. My aunt was furious and called my mom, confronting her about it. My aunt berated my mom and said I could stay the night with her. When I got home to pack my things, mom was furious and threw money at me, asking if I was happy now that I made sister feel bad. I ignored her, grabbed my things, and left. While at my aunt's place, I received many nasty texts from family members saying I was in the wrong. My dad told me that he didn't agree with what my mom and sister did, but I didn't have to expose them to my aunt. I've been feeling extremely guilty, and I've been wondering if I was in the wrong. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your sister is a thief, and both of your parents are enablers. I'm glad you have an adult who is treating you well. Not the jerk. I would see if you could stay with your aunt longer. Show her the text messages. It was your aunt's gift to you. I'd tell her to go to the police about theft. It was her money after all. That is actually a good idea. Next time your sister steals a large sum of money from you, record your mother and sister when they tell you that your sister stole it. Then go to the police and report her. Maybe getting some consequences for her behavior would be beneficial for her. Not the jerk. Good for you that your aunt has taken you in. Your mom has clearly a favorite daughter, and sadly it's not you. As long as your sister doesn't learn boundaries from your mom, she's going to continue and surely will have it hard in life when she has to learn she doesn't get everything she wants, and there are actually consequences for her behavior. Your father knew of the behavior of sister before, and as well, he hasn't done anything. I bet he wouldn't have done something now again. He can't stand up to your mother, and exposing this behavior was the only thing you could do to make them realize their actions are wrong. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you expose your family for stealing from you or not? Please let us know. Exposing would be an understatement. You don't even want to know what I'd do to them. I sent my cousin the bill for my kid's birthday cake after her kid ruined it. We recently threw my 5-year-old a birthday party. He hasn't had a real birthday party since he was 2 years old due to lockdown, so this was the first one he'd actually remember. We wanted to make it special, so we invited all of our closest friends, family members, and their kids. One of my cousins, a single mom, has a very unruly 6-year-old. He's loud, disobedient, and a nightmare in public. When it came time to blow out the candles and cut the birthday cake, he came and stood directly next to my son. I anticipated what was going to happen next and asked my husband to stand behind this kid in case he tried to pull anything. After we sang, this kid kept trying to blow out the candles. My husband kept blocking him and pulling him back, and we could tell the kid was getting frustrated. Eventually, my son blew out the candles, and the kid absolutely lost it. He threw a tantrum and slammed his entire arm into the cake, knocking it into the table. It was so awkward, everyone just gasped and got quiet. My son looked up at us, and I could tell he was about to start crying. In an effort to not cause a bigger scene, My husband picked him up and whispered to him that we had another special cake just for him. We didn't, and he seemed to calm down. Meanwhile, his cousin was still standing there screaming and crying, his arm covered in cake. His mom was nowhere to be seen. I walked him over to the sink and washed him off and quietly told him that he shouldn't have done that to the cake and that he should apologize to his cousin for what he did. He screamed, "No!" in my face and then ran away. My husband ended up running out to buy a sheet cake that we cut and served to everyone. I spoke to my cousin after the party about what happened since she wasn't in the room, and she brushed it off, saying, "Kids will be kids." I completely disagree. I've been to plenty of birthday parties where the other kids let the birthday boy or birthday girl have their moment. I suggested that she pay for the ruined cake, and she looked at me like I was crazy. I told her how important it was to us that this birthday be special to my son, since it would be the first one he remembered, and now all he would remember was that his cousin ruined his special moment. She got extremely defensive and refused to pay for anything. She then accused me of acting like the perfect mom and began to list the ways in which I was in fact not perfect. It was a hurtful conversation and we haven't spoken since. I sent her the bill for the ruined cake and she has not paid us. I actually feel she should pay for both cakes since her kid is the reason we had to get a new one, but I didn't go that far. My husband thinks she'll never pay us and that I should drop the issue at this point. He says that since she's a single mom, it's probably hard on her and we should cut them both some slack. I understand that, but I feel like that's just letting her and her son off the hook, and this will lead to even bigger problems in the future if we don't hold them accountable. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk, but you'll never get your money, and I think you made the point. The kid is a jerk because the parent is a jerk. No longer invite them to any parties and enjoy your immediate family because they seem nice. Not the jerk. I agree. You will never get your money back, and your only way to go from here is to cut her out completely because her son and her bad parenting will only get worse. Not the jerk, but obviously she's not going to pay for the cake. Don't invite her to any more occasions or events and just write her off. Her son is going to have massive problems in the future no matter what. It's not your responsibility, nor do you even have the ability to prevent that. Hounding her about paying for the cake isn't going to make any difference at all, except make both of you feel more anger and resentment. Believe me, when your son is older, he's going to remember, "Oh yeah, I remember jerk cousin ruined my cake that year. I wonder if he's out of jail yet." Bring down all the servers during the day? Why not? At the height of the subprime mortgage market, around 2007, when all it took to qualify for a home loan was that you were breathing, I reluctantly took a job with a mid-sized lender that had the headquarters in one state and a large office in another, where I was. We had very recently combined two local offices and moved into a shiny new building we had all to ourselves. In order to keep the servers up during a power outage, we had a massive battery backup array. They wanted these servers to remain powered for a minimum of 12 hours in case the power went out. We had 32 batteries daisy-chained together, with one unit serving as the control unit. When we moved this massively heavy battery array from the old building to the new, getting it all reconnected was one of my duties. I got them all stacked and connected and turned on. Before we had connected the servers, I made sure they were all aligned properly and at one point gave one a little bump to move it just a bit and the whole thing shut off. After double-checking everything, I concluded we had a bad controller that could continue to present intermittent problems. The VP of IT, we'll just call him VP, had flown out to oversee the move. The guy was just a kid of 23, and if I recall correctly, he was the son of a friend of the founders. He was a smart guy, just inexperienced, and had an ego that far exceeded his skills and experience. So I told him, "Hey VP, there's a fault in the battery array. If you bump it a little, it goes off." VP replies, "Don't worry about it, Jake. Just get it up and running so we can get the servers connected." So I did. This was not the malicious compliance. 3 months down the road, everything in the new office is humming along, and it's time to catch up on lingering tasks. On the phone with VP, and he says, "Jake, go reconfigure the controller card for the battery array with the IP address I just emailed you." You guessed it, cue malicious compliance. I knew what was very likely to happen, and I purposely did not remind VP of the instability of the controller card. So after the call, I grabbed a serial cable and my laptop and went down to the server room. The moment I plugged that cable into the controller card of the battery array, the entire thing went down like a drunk on an icy sidewalk. Normally, this wouldn't be a huge issue, but this was a mortgage company and it was early afternoon on the last day of the month. Interest rates had been locked and loans had to be closed. I powered the battery array back on, fired up the servers, collected my laptop, and walked out. As I came up the back stairs into the main office area, it was pandemonium. No one quite understood what had happened yet. The VP called me and asked what had happened. I replied, "I only did what you told me to do. I went to reconfigure the controller card for the battery array and then reminded him that I had previously reported it as faulty." I, of course, got the blame for the whole debacle. Hundreds of loans didn't get closed that day. The predatory lender lost out on a lot of money and I was about to be fired. When I got back to the tech room, I started copying all my files, etc. to a CD because I knew what was going to happen. I also had a talk with the VP of lending and explained what really happened. At the end of the workday, I was brought into the conference room by HR. The VP was on speakerphone. "Jake, this is all your fault, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to let you go." I was stoic in my reply. "No, this is your fault. I warned you before that the controller was bad." He said, "You knew it was the last day of the month. You should have known to wait the next day," and proceeded to start yelling and screaming at me because he had to deflect because HR was right there. I stopped him in the middle of seething and said, VP, you fired me, right?" He shot back, "You're darn right I did." So I stood up, took a calm, deep breath and said, "Then I don't need to sit here and listen to you," and I walked out, leaving my laptop behind. I could hear the speakerphone jumping off the conference room table as he screamed at me to come back. I stopped, laughed, and kept on walking. Best day of work I ever had. Edit. For those that said I should have reminded him, it wouldn't have mattered a bit. He dismissed pretty much everything I ever said to him that wasn't following orders, and if something went wrong, he was never to blame. He was arrogant and inexperienced and never took advice. Also, the company as a whole was highly predatory, something I didn't know when I started. Am I the jerk for storming out after I didn't like the birthday present I was given? I, 20 female, recently turned 20 and had a party to celebrate turning 20. It was a small gathering at my favorite sushi restaurant with only my immediate family and a few friends. Everything was going well until it came time for the presents. You see, in my family, there's this tradition that when the firstborn turns 20, they are given this pocket watch that was owned by my great-grandfather. When our country was still colonized by the British, he, my great-grandfather, was taken in by some missionaries and became a teacher. As a teacher, he was super instrumental to the community and partly funded the first Black-owned school there. He became headmaster, and as a thanks, the community chipped in to get him a pocket watch. When my grandfather turned 20, he was given the watch, and it became a tradition. As per tradition, I was expecting to get the watch. I had even made an effort of hinting how I wanted a watch for the whole year prior. Among the presents, I saw this small box and got excited thinking it was the watch. The watch came in this wooden casing with a velvet lining inside, and it was about the same size as the box I saw. I made a deliberate choice to open that box last to make sure the night ended on a highlight. When it came time to open the box, it was a watch, but a digital one. It was a good watch, to be honest, but it wasn't the watch. My dad was excited as he went on prattling about the features of the watch. It could count steps, connect to my phone via Bluetooth, control music, measure my heart rate, etc. While he was talking, I burst into tears and left the table running. My dad follows and asks why I was sad, and I said I wanted the watch, the one that belonged to my great-grandfather. He said he wanted to give it to my younger brother, who is 12, since he's a boy. If he gives it to me, it will leave the family since I'll get married to a man and join his family. This came as a blow since I've always been closer to my dad than my brother was, and my brother isn't even interested in the watch like I have been my whole life. We got into an argument and it ended with him saying my immaturity over such a small matter is why he wouldn't have given the watch to me even if I was a boy. I left after he said that. That was 2 weeks ago, and we haven't spoken since. So, am I the jerk? Edit. It's always been the firstborn who gets it, but the firstborns have always been men since the tradition started. I'm the first female firstborn. I suppose I shouldn't have stormed out. I'm 20 now after all. I was super overwhelmed by my feelings. I'm prone to tears, always have been, but I should have calmed myself, especially since it was a public place. Not the jerk. Your father is passing you over for an important family heirloom because you're not a boy. I don't blame you for getting upset. I honestly don't get how people are saying not the jerk. She's not entitled to the watch. You're the jerk big time. Because Reddit is an echo chamber of entitled jerks who have no experience in the real world or in a functioning society. They would call this horrible if the roles were reversed, except they would still say the man is the jerk for trying to take away a female heirloom. It's tragic, but I don't know what you really expect. You're the jerk. I know I'm gonna get downvoted to oblivion, but hear me out. In my family, there's a tradition where the ancestral jewelry is passed down only to the women of the family, including rings which can be worn by both men and women. But no one would say that's wrong, it's just how it is. I believe that's the same reason your dad has. You're the jerk. Grandfather to son. It would be like your brother getting upset for not getting your grandmother's jewelry. I, male, wouldn't dream of getting my mom's wedding ring, but my father's watch? It would be an insult not to. She made it clear that she wanted it. He should have discussed it with her at home beforehand if he wasn't going to give it to her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her dad? Please let us know. Yowza, this one's spicy. I can't wait to read the comments our viewers think of it. Entitled Grandpa thinks we should take his 5 grandkids to Disneyland. My older sister, Pam, and her second husband, Jerry, not real names, have custody of Jerry's 5 grandkids. Jerry's son and daughter-in-law are currently serving prison terms for white-collar crime. The kids range in age from 15 down to 5. Pam had 2 daughters from her first marriage. I was very involved in my nieces' lives while growing up. My husband and I don't have any kids, and we often took the girls together and separately on trips, amusement parks, camping, age-appropriate concerts, and other things. The girls were close in age and had similar interests, so it made things easy to take them places together. Unfortunately, the younger of my nieces passed in an automobile accident when she was 18. The older niece now lives over 1,000 miles away, so we don't see her or her only kid very often. At a recent family gathering, one of Jerry's youngest grandkids came up to me and asked me when I was going to take her and her siblings to Disney World. I told her she must have mistaken me for another person because I wasn't going to Disney World, so I wouldn't be taking her and her siblings there. She ran off to Pam and started to cry. Later, Pam and Jerry asked to speak with my husband and I privately. They wanted to know why we don't take Jerry's grandkids on trips like we used to take my nieces. Turns out they had told the kids that we would take them all to Disney World sometime. Needless to say, my husband and I were shocked. We never took my nieces to Disney World. Most of our trips with them were in our home state or the neighboring states. Plus, we were younger, and there were only 2 of them, so we could keep up with them rather easily. Not to mention, the cost of taking 2 kids is much less than taking 5. My husband and I have been cutting back on expenses and expenditures because we don't know what will happen with the economy, and we don't want to jeopardize our own retirement plans. Also, we are basically strangers to Jerry's grandkids. We didn't meet any of them until Pam and Jerry took custody of them last year, and this family gathering was the first time that we've met all 5 of them. Jerry said that they expected us to take the grandkids on trips like we had taken Pam's daughters when they were kids, because we have no grandkids, just like we had no kids. So we should be happy to have this opportunity to play like we have grandkids. Then we said we would pass on this opportunity because of the reasons mentioned above, and these are Jerry's grandkids and in no way related to either my husband or myself. Jerry blew up and called us selfish and said that they had expected us to help out when they took custody of the kids, and he stormed off. Am I the jerk for bringing my entire family to the restaurant where my girlfriend was working as a server in order to meet her? I, 24 male, have been dating my girlfriend, 26 female, for several months. She works as a server at a local popular restaurant. My family has been, for a few weeks now, asking to meet her. I have 2 older sisters who are 31 and 27, as well as 3 nieces and a mother and father who are both in their late 50s. My girlfriend doesn't have a good relationship with her own parents and has expressed envy over me having a good relationship with mine. I've asked her a few times to come with me to meet my family, but she's always had an excuse on why she couldn't. So anyway, last weekend I brought my whole family, my parents as well as my sisters and their husbands and their kids, to her restaurant. I requested a table in her section. When she saw us, I could tell she was taken aback, but she did her job well and even took the time to talk to us all and to get to know my parents, sisters, brother-in-law, and nieces as well as she could while still doing her job and taking care of her other customers. Upon leaving, my entire family expressed that they really liked her, that I was lucky, and that they were glad to have met her. They also left her a huge tip. I thought the whole thing was fine. However, after she got off her shift, my girlfriend texted me and said, "Thanks a lot, you jerk." I called her and she went off on me about how I shouldn't have blindsided her by bringing my whole family and how she should have had the chance to meet my family on her terms. I responded that she didn't seem to want to meet my family whenever I brought it up, so that if it were to ever happen, this was the way I'd figured out. But she said that what I did was wrong and that she had to give my family special attention at the expense of her other tables, which I think wasn't true. Maybe I shouldn't have sprung my whole family on her in the way I did, but it went well, and I am kind of annoyed that she can't see that. You're the jerk. The update will be that she dumped you and that you're surprised. She's right. You blindsided her with something that she's having difficulty coping with. Instead of easing her into another possible meeting scenario, offering only meeting one of your sisters at a time, for example, and respecting whatever decision she made, you show up with your whole family at her place of work. So not only are you ignoring her opinions, but you're also putting her in a tough time at work. Please update us that she broke up with you. Not only at her work, but in a situation where she literally has to serve them. You're the jerk. And it's not even as if he turned up with just his parents or just one of his siblings, for example. He blindsided her with his parents, his siblings, their spouses, and their kids. The whole shebang. You're the jerk, OP. Big time. I will probably get downvoted for this, but I don't care. OP, you are absolutely not the jerk. If she was uncomfortable with meeting your family, that isn't a healthy relationship to begin with. OP also never states that she indicated she was uncomfortable with meeting them, just that she envied the better relationship. And on top of that, she only ever gave excuses to OP as to why she couldn't see them. As a reasonable boyfriend, you are not at fault for trying to do something fun for your girlfriend while she's working. And if she didn't appreciate it, she could have very easily explained why she didn't appreciate it instead of coming out the gate with name-calling. Maybe people here are just desensitized to men being treated more like crap than women, but if this was the reverse, everyone would have crapped on the guy if he reacted like this. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for not helping my sister to remove something that insults her? My sister cheated on her husband. Her husband is a restaurant owner. He has one of those quirky restaurants with funny food names. It's all one-liners. I'm not a fan of it because I find it embarrassing, but the food is good. Once the divorce went through, he added a menu item along the lines of Sarah's cheating chicken. My sister's name is something super generic. I know like 19 Sarahs. A friend sent Sarah the menu and she was outraged. She came to me to ask me to help her take it down. I'm not a lawyer and don't plan to be, but I've taken corporate law courses and have friends that are lawyers. But I don't want to help her. In my personal opinion, she deserves this and I don't want to get involved. The only ones that would know who this is about already know the story, so there's not really a case for defamation. There are too many Sarahs. The only thing we could do is send a cease and desist letter, but that's not legally binding and it's a hassle. I told my sister so and she got mad at me and told our parents, who say that what her ex is doing is worse than what she did. Am I the jerk? The fact that she claims this is worse than her cheating on her ex-husband tells you that she's going to present herself as the victim regardless of what you do, so you might as well stick to your guns. I'd go buy one of those meals and encourage the ex, not the jerk. Also, does she know about the Streisand effect? The more you try to censor something, the more it becomes. This is a win-win for the poor ex-husband. Either he gets a laugh, or he has to take it off the menu, but the entire town knows that his ex-wife Sarah cheated on him and got upset when he called her out, even though he will definitely name something else, the ex-wife lawsuit lasagna, or the cheating ex-wife Streisand salad. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my mother-in-law in front of the family? My mother-in-law, Barbara, is a conservative woman. She tends to be very critical of me. She always finds flaws in me and is always trying to fix them. Example, her response to me dyeing my hair was that I committed a sin by changing God's chosen hair color for me. She once threw away some of my clothes, saying her son shouldn't see them because it's sinful. We were already married, by the way. During engagement period, she made a weekly reminder of me not to get pregnant or else she and her family will disown the baby and cut me off. Recently, she started making comments about how bad my face looks. She keeps sending me boxes and boxes of this tea she recommends since she's big on herbals and essential oils, basically forcing me to try it, although I already told her that it makes my stomach hurt and causes me to throw up. Yesterday, I visited my in-laws alone for lunch since my husband, Tommy, had work and couldn't come. Barbara examined my face from across the table while we were eating and was like, "Oh, looks like the tea has finally yielded some pretty good results. Your face no longer looks pale and outworn like before." Everyone stopped eating and stared at me. I felt so embarrassed and quite shocked that she had called my face that. I leaned back and told her, "No, Tommy's actually been helping me de-stress every night in his own special way. Wink, wink." She must have figured out what I meant, and so did the others because they started laughing, and she literally widened her eyes in shock. She looked very offended but said nothing, just said, "Excuse me," and walked out. Silence then took over, but later Barbara called me, lashing out about the disrespectful and inappropriate things I said in front of the family. I said that I was just letting her know her tea did nothing and told her the reason my face was blooming. She shamed me for talking about her son like that and said I clearly am taking advantage of him. I guaranteed that I wasn't taking advantage, but she kept berating me, then wrapped up with a request for an apology after I offended her in front of the family. Don't know if I messed up here. Am I the jerk for my response? Am I the jerk for no longer allowing my sister to work in my daycare after what she did? Hi, I'm a 32-year-old widow. Have been for 3 years. I struggled a lot financially. I didn't get help from my family because they claimed they can't, so I decided to start a home daycare. It's been open for 7 months now. My friend was able to get me more clients via Facebook. Thank goodness my business is growing and I've made quite a lot of friends who are moms and also established good reputation since my daycare has been recommended. My sister, 26, is unemployed, didn't find a job yet and had rent to pay for her and her boyfriend. My parents suggested I let her come work with me at my daycare and accepted since she has experience in the past. I agreed to let her come and earn her living. She got along with the other workers and things were going fine, until she came to me asking about a specific kid that comes to our daycare. He's 4, very well behaved for his age. I was confused after she complained about him. She said she saw his dad come over to pick him up and didn't feel comfortable when she saw him because he's a police officer, and she had an unpleasant incident with the police because of something her boyfriend did that she needed therapy for and struggled a lot from. She wanted me to let the kid go and tell the parent to look for another daycare. He usually arrives at 3 p.m. to pick the kid up. From what I understand, his wife's sick. I refused. I've no good reason to let the kid go. My sister refused to drop it and started being mean to the dad. It was unprofessional of her. I told her she either be respectful or I won't have her work with me anymore. 2 days ago, she sent an email to the dad telling him we won't be welcoming his kid at the daycare anymore. He came to talk to me and I was livid when I saw the email. He asked why and talked about his kid wanting to stay because he's friends with other kids. Talked about not being able to find a daycare closer than ours. I lashed out at my sister and I told her she's no longer able to work at the daycare because of her behavior. We got into an argument and she left after saying I was being unsupportive and inconsiderate. My parents called me saying I shouldn't have kicked out my sister and I'm now causing her to lose her apartment. They argued I have no regard for my sister's trauma and I should have let the kid go and supported her because she's my sister. Everyone shamed me and claimed I had messed up priorities. I felt I was in the wrong for letting her struggle now without a job, but I have no reason to let go of the kid as well. He wears a uniform. My aunt suggested that I ask him to get someone else to come and pick up his kid, or at least I let her leave before 3 p.m. and arrive a bit late in the morning. But others would notice the difference in treatment at the daycare. I understand that there are parents struggling, and I do all I can to help out and be supportive. Yes, she's my younger sister, but treating people like that was unprofessional of her. One thing to clarify, my sister's boyfriend is in no contact with my family due to issues. However, they said they want to support my sister and be in contact with her and support her, although they don't have a relationship with her boyfriend. That's why they keep pressuring me to help and support her. Entitled Pool Mom's Plans Backfire. This happened in late July of 2019. Me, 17, female, and my family, what I call my family and parents' friends' family that I grew up with, were at a pool at a super hot day. It was midday and the pool was packed. For some background, we were at a campground with 2 pools, so the pool I was in was filled with older kids and adults, while the other one was for the kids and the toddlers. The larger pool had been crowded by multiple families and all the tables near the pool were filled. I had been floating on a pool tube in the pool, watching my friends play around me and casually listening into my parents and their friends' conversations. I was just vibing when I noticed some commotion coming from my left side. I saw maybe 6 boys, aging from 10 to 14, playing with the water basketball set, the ones where you shoot from inside the pool. They were just being kids, and every once in a while, the ball would roll away from the pool and one of them would jump out to get the ball. It just so happened that the ball had rolled in the direction of our entitled parent. Entitled parent was with her 3 little kids. She started yelling at the boys. It's been a while since this happened, but I'll try to be as accurate as possible. Karen: "Hey, quit playing so rough around my kids. You're making too much noise and getting my stuff all wet from your splashing, etc." She went on this rant for a while, yelling at the boys for playing in the pool. She cried about how her baby was getting splashed and how rude the boys were. At this point, the boys had all stopped to watch her in shock. I saw one of the boys look like he was about to cry. This is when I stepped, or floated in. Me: "Excuse me, ma'am." Her gaze turned to me, and if looks could kill, I would have combusted then and there. "What?" Me: "The boys are just playing. Let them be. Your kids are nowhere near them and aren't bothered at all. This is the camp pool. Let the kids play and leave them alone." Did I mention her own kids were on the other side of the pool splashing each other? She got red in the face and grumbled at me to shut up, but didn't really do much. The boys thanked me and I thought the incident was over. Or so I thought. About 5 minutes later, I saw her still glaring at me, but I did my best to ignore her. I saw her skirt and walked over to her kids. She whispered to them something. They got super excited and started to run at me. I was slightly confused until I realized they weren't stopping. They ran at me and launched themselves into the pool to splash me. Now I have glasses and I'm pretty much blind without them, so I wear them in the pool with me if I'm just floating, like I was that day. Once I cleared the water from my glasses, I saw the kids giggling in the water, running to the ladder, and then the Karen just giving a smug grin. Then I had an idea. I grinned right back at her and then turned to her kids with a laugh and said with a smile, "Me, is that the best you got? I barely noticed any splash. Hit me again." The kids lit up with joy and quickly scrambled out of the pool and tried to splash me again. Each time I would laugh and encourage them to try again. This quickly turned into all the kids in my area trying their hardest to make the biggest splash and me ranking each splash. I will cherish the face the entitled parent gave me when she realized her plan of messing with me completely backfired and how she couldn't stop what was happening without her upsetting her kids. It was glorious. Karen threatens me with child support. I laugh in her face. The title makes me sound like the biggest jerk in the world, but hear me out. I, 35 male, have 4 kids. My youngest is 6 and my oldest is 14, all to my ex-wife Clara. I have 2 girls and 2 twin boys who are 10. I love my kids more than life. I work full-time, so my kids live with my ex, although sometimes they will come to my house after school and I will drop them off the next morning on my way to work. My kids come to my house almost every weekend, except for when they stay at grandparents' or friends' houses. My ex doesn't have a very good job. She's a cashier, and her boyfriend works at KFC. I know money is tight for them, so I often send the kids home with snacks for school. I buy them most of their clothes and a lot of extra things that they want, like jewelry, phones, PlayStations, etc. Well, the other day, Clara called me asking if we could meet up for lunch. As soon as I got there, she got straight to the point, saying she expected $500 in child support every week or she's taking me to court. I laughed at her and she called me an arrogant deadbeat and walked out. Although I do have a good paying job and I could pay her, it's the principle of it. If she had just told me that the money was tight, I would have said of course and chipped in. But seeing as she demanded it, I don't want to. My eldest daughter is asking me to because she doesn't want her mom to make sure I don't see my kids anymore. But to be honest, I don't think she stands a chance in court. My parents and sister told me I am a huge jerk for not only freaking out my daughter, but not paying Clara when she needs it the most. So, am I the jerk? Update. These comments are making some good points, but I'm awfully confused now. I've never thought about why there was never a plan in place. I just signed the papers and it never really got brought up again. When we first divorced, I asked her what custody was going to look like and she just said, don't worry about it. Before she got her job, I was paying around $100 every second week, but when she got the job, she told me that the money made her feel like she was dependent on me. But there was never actually an order in place. I just never thought about it. Is there someone I should go to look at things and see what I should do? I think you should go to a court so a judge can decide a fair amount of child support for the kids. It's about their well-being, not yours or their mother's. Go to court to figure out how much to give your kids the best life possible. You're the jerk. 1. Your ex never should have involved a kid in an adult situation. That had to be said first. Your daughter should not be worried about this. 2. Your ex is raising 4 kids the majority of the time. That's a lot of money being spent on them. You said yourself she doesn't have a good job and struggles. Why would you want your kids to live in a home where there is financial instability? 3. You said you can afford $2,000 a month in child support, but flat out refused because you didn't like the way she broached the subject. That alone makes you a jerk. If you are so convinced she doesn't stand a chance in court, then take her to court to settle custody. Oh wait, you're perfectly happy letting her do the majority to raise the kids while you just have visits, but you don't want to have to pay for that. 4. You'll buy them clothes and things to play with, but what about daily food, electricity, grooming supplies, laundry supplies, school lunches, water? The list goes on and on and on. It adds up fast. Pay your fair share for your kids. If you think $2,000 a month is too much, then either negotiate with her on what you feel is fair or run it through the court system and let them decide what's fair. 5. Grow up and stop acting like your ex has to come to you on a bended knee in order for you to be a darn father. Edit. Thank you for all the awards. They're my first. I also want to say I don't think this guy is necessarily a bad guy. I just don't think he is thinking things through all of the way. Karen raises my rent, so I move out. For context, I, 22 female, and Jay, 32 female, moved into a house together about 2 years ago. Her name is on the lease, and she is technically renting me and her brother and his friend, both 36 male, rooms in this house. The 2 guys downstairs are only there for 4 days a month due to their jobs, and she charges them half as much as me for rent. They also use the full-sized garage in the back to store things. For the last 2 years, Jay and I have lived together semi-peacefully. She's quite messy, and due to my mental health, messes causing worse anxiety and depression, I tend to clean up a lot after her. She also has 2 dogs and a cat. She asks me to feed and let out her dogs on a regular basis. Her dogs will sometimes get into the garbage, or her cat will go to the bathroom downstairs, and Jay expects the first person to see the mess to clean it up, even though it's from her animals. I also have a small room that barely fits my bed, while Jay has a bedroom and a spare room to herself. The boys have a whole basement and the garage to themselves. Now to the issue that broke the last straw for me. Jay gets our hydro and electricity bill every 2 months, and for the last billing period, she got a huge bill. It's winter, and we do live in northern Canada, so it can get quite cold. I was also gone on vacation for 3 out of the 8 weeks that this bill was covering. Jay has been complaining about how expensive utilities are and how outrageous this is for her to pay all of this. I pay her rent for March a few days early, so she has time to e-transfer rent to the actual owner of the house. I sent her an extra $100 because I felt bad about the utilities, and after she received it, she texted me and asked for an extra $150. So $250 on top of my normal rent. Jay only pays about $100 in rent and then covers the utilities. That was our verbal agreement 2 years ago. But now, all of a sudden, the utilities should be my responsibility too. She's making me feel like a freeloader that costs her so much money. My friend just bought a house and offered to let me move in. So last night, I gave Jay my notice and told her I would be out of here at the end of March. I'm actually moving out next week because I cannot stand to be here any longer. I feel like I'm unwanted in my own space now. Now Jay is upset with me because I'm putting more of a financial burden on her, but my friend offered me a cheaper rent and won't charge me for utilities out of the blue. My friend is also much cleaner and has been a huge emotional support as I've been living with Jay and trying to keep the house functional. So, am I the jerk for moving out and putting financial stress on Jay? Not the jerk. Get out of there now. It seems like she's taking advantage of you. You just got a better offer. Not your responsibility to make her life easier at your own expense. Am I the jerk for refusing to answer to a nickname I don't like? I, 28 female, was named after a really obscure character from Greek mythology. My preferred nickname is taken from the end of my name. I always introduce myself with, "I'm my name, but you can call me nickname." None of my coworkers in the small business we work for have ever had a problem with this before, until Megan, who's 25, the niece of Jeff, who's in his 50s, one of the 2 owners, was hired. Jeff and Dave, both in their 50s, co-own the business, but Dave does the actual day-to-day running of the business. I introduced myself and my nickname as usual, but she immediately said that Bessie, not the actual name, would be a better nickname because it comes from the beginning of my name and that she liked it better. I told her I really didn't like that nickname and wouldn't answer to it and asked her to please not call me Bessie, but she insisted that it was so much prettier and that I just needed to get used to it. For the next 2 months, she tried to call me Bessie, but I completely ignored her whenever she addressed me that way, even when I knew she really needed my help with something. She would call my desk phone and say, "Hey Bessie." I would reply, "You have the wrong number, there's no Bessie here," and hang up. She then tried to get some of the employees outside the office to start calling me Bessie, but I quickly shut that down. I usually finish my work early and help them with a lot of tedious little things that aren't part of my job description and threatened to stop helping them unless she used my preferred nickname. Friday, she decided she was going to get me to respond to Bessie no matter what. We have an open office design, but are at opposite ends. She started calling out Bessie in a sing-along voice over and over again to try and annoy me enough to respond. Other coworkers got annoyed, most telling her to stop, and one, Lisa, who's 43, telling me to just let her call me Bessie already. I refused, and she kept calling out Bessie louder and louder until Dave barged in. He had been on a conference call with an important client and could hear yelling from his office down the hall. He told her to be quiet and that if she called me Bessie one more time, he'd write her up and dock her pay. Later, Megan cornered me in the break room, called me a jerk for getting her in trouble, and called me Bessie again for good measure, just as Dave was walking in to heat up his lunch. He gave her a stern look and said, "I warned you." Then he walked to HR to have her written up. Lisa is saying I'm the jerk for never helping Megan, and that if I had been nicer or hadn't fought her so hard on the nickname, she probably would have given up on it a while ago. But because I made such a big deal out of it, it became a challenge. So Reddit, am I the jerk? You're not the jerk. You established a boundary, and her determination to break it is going to keep getting her into trouble. My entitled neighbors stole my garage twice. I live in the northeast of England, and I'm originally from Wales. I've owned a house in Wales I've been renting out for the last 10 years. Everything has been super smooth until a year ago. The tenant stopped paying rent, made multiple promises to pay, etc. In the end, I got so frustrated, I decided to sell the place. I cut my losses on the outstanding rent, circa £3,000, and told the tenant if he left by certain date, I'd write off the rent. Tenant goes over the deadline by a couple of weeks, but ultimately leaves. However, the house is in a terrible condition. The tenant had painted many of the walls bright orange and had got this paint everywhere, including the carpet and skirting boards. The oven had half-cooked rotten food. He had been too lazy to put rubbish in the outside bin, so simply threw it in the shed. Anyway, a bit of a side story, but for context, I live 6 hours away, but my mom and stepfather live 30 minutes away. I've decided to sell, but of course I can't sell the house in its current state. My mom has generously offered to help, and we set a date for me to come back down to start the work. We order a skip, etc. 2 solid days' work later, the place is looking much better. It's not going to win House of the Year, but enough to sell. One of the issues is that we can't seem to get the garage key to work. My stepfather promises to come the following week and drill the lockout. Fast forward to the following week, and my stepfather is in the process of drilling the lockout when he's interrupted by a neighbor who we will call Entitled Neighbor. Entitled Neighbor. "Excuse me, can you please stop doing that? You're damaging my garage." Stepfather. Actually, this garage belongs to my stepson who's selling this house." Entitled Neighbor. "Well, I've been using this garage for the last 12 months, so he has no right." Stepfather doesn't know what to say. Turns out that the entitled neighbor noticed the tenant wasn't using the garage, so drilled out the locks, swapped a new lock, and started using it. When it was finally opened, it was full to the brim with his stuff. He didn't think anyone would notice. I find out the information and call him, telling him he has 24 hours to empty the garage and replace the lock. He can't do it within 24 hours apparently, but apologizes and promises to drop the new keys through the letterbox in a few days. It's annoying, but luckily it's all working out, and I don't want to cause too much hassle with the neighbor. My mom visited the house the following week, picked up the key, opened the garage, and yes, it was now empty. Job done. Fast forward 6 months. House is sold. Arranging key handover, etc. However, I get a text from the new owner the following day. Under the sale contract, it's my responsibility to ensure the house and any buildings are empty for the sale. Otherwise, I can be liable for costs, etc. Straight away, I know what's happened and call the entitled neighbor. Turns out he kept a spare key on the lock change. Yes, in hindsight, I should have had my own lock, but I didn't think anyone would be that stupid. He noticed no one was using the garage, so he decided to start using it again. I was furious. He couldn't understand why I was so mad.
But you weren't using it, so what's the big issue?
Well, did you ask my permission? No. Does the garage belong to you? No. What do you expect? I gave him 1 hour to clear the garage before I call the police and order a clearance company to empty the garage. The sheer cheek of the man. Anyway, all sorted now, garage is empty, locks have been changed, and having sold the property, the entitled neighbor is now someone else's problem. Am I the jerk for not waking my boyfriend, which made him late to his first day at a new job? I, 28 female, have lived with my boyfriend, 30 male, for 3 years now. When I first stayed the night and he overslept, I woke him up. He woke up in a bad mood, and after a big fight, made it absolutely clear that I should not wake him up even if I knew he would be late to meeting the Pope. His words. After I calmed down, I wrote a contract that said I would never wake him up under any circumstances short of an emergency as long as he never blames me for oversleeping. He laughed and signed it. I kept it with my important documents. Daughter of 2 lawyers, get everything in writing and don't sign anything unless you and your lawyer read it, are rules I live by. Fast forward to yesterday. He just started a new job. Celebrated the night before playing with some guys online. He had to wake up by 7 a.m. I woke up at 5 a.m. like usual, did all my stuff. By the time it was 7 a.m., he didn't wake up. I left the house at 8:15 a.m. and he was still asleep. When I got back, he was there and he was very angry. He started shouting and blamed me for being late, saying I should have woken him up when I noticed he overslept. All I did was stay silent until he stopped shouting, then showed him the paper he signed. And then I said, I never woke you up and I never will. You're an adult and you can set an alarm like the rest of us. Also, you being late is a you problem and I have no part in it at all. Now he says I'm the jerk and I should have known that the old rules do not apply since he no longer works for his friend that was lax with time. I still think I did nothing wrong. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It also sounds like you're in a bad relationship. This guy is 30 years old and unable to wake himself up for his new job, then blames his girlfriend even though it's his responsibility? Talk about a catch. And expected her to just know that she was meant to be waking him up like she's a mind reader. Guy furious, our store isn't in alphabetical order. I work at a big chain liquor store. It's huge. Last I heard, we sold about 30,000 different products. We sort our products by variety, obviously. But once you get to, for example, the Chardonnay aisle, it goes by price. A man came in who I didn't recognize until he started speaking. He proceeded to have a nearly identical conversation with me to the last time he was here. He asks for a certain type of wine. I say I'll look it up for him. He asks if the products are ordered alphabetically, something he must have worked out by the time he's wandering around and asking for assistance. He makes a big production of sighing, rolling his eyes and saying, "That's stupid," very emphatically. I spent years working at an independent grocery store where the prices were pretty expensive. I get so used to people saying stuff like, "This is ridiculous. I can get this for half the price at this other store." I developed a personal policy of not giving an inch. I'm not talking about people politely inquiring or criticizing, by the way. I'm talking about people who need me to know that they're super angry about things outside of my control. So when he's repeating, "It's stupid," I calmly say, "Oh, okay," and continue to search for his product. Obviously, this is not the reaction he wants, so he keeps going. "It's stupid. Why would they do that?" Eventually, I say, still calm, "Oh, I think you told me that last time." He says, "Then why didn't you change it?" I tell him it's not up to me, the same thing I told him last time. He tells me, can I pass on a message? I say I did, But unfortunately, I don't think it will change anything as these chains all follow the same layout. Of course I didn't. My boss would just stare at me if I took him aside to tell him a customer said the store was stupid and asked us to change it. He asked when the store manager would be in next, and he said he'd come talk to him. I can't imagine wasting your life like that. Sir, if you are out there, I can't possibly express how little I care what things you find stupid. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter I don't regret sending her away? So I, 46 female, was married and had 2 daughters. When Abby was 5 and Sarah was 8, my husband passed. It was awful and really affected the 2 girls, and after he passed, we went to family therapy for a long time. When Sarah was 13, I started to date again, and this is where the problem started. Sarah started to act out a lot, screaming, breaking things, and more. I kept my new boyfriend away and started Sarah in private therapy and therapy with me in the sessions. We stopped family therapy when she was 11. It didn't help and just kept getting worse and worse. It got to the point where I broke up with the boyfriend at the time since I thought it would help Sarah. It didn't get better and really affected the relationship between the 2 sisters. Abby started to resent Sarah for her actions. When Sarah was 15, she and her friends, she was not in a good crowd at school, snuck out of the house and stole a friend's parents' car. They were caught by one of the parents, and Sarah was in the driver's seat drunk. That was the last straw. I signed her up for teen rehab programs that deal with all types of issues. Since Sarah was considered a flight risk since she sneaks out of the house all the time, they picked her up in the middle of the night. She was in the program for 6 months, and during that time I sold the house and moved to a different state so all of us would have a fresh start. After Sarah got back from the program, she was a lot better. There was still work to do, but the whole family was able to get through it. Though the relationship between Sarah and Abby has never been close since. Today, Sarah is 22 and is back from college for spring break. Yesterday, we were looking at old family photos from our old house. Sarah was quiet for most of it and asked me if I regretted sending her to that program. I told her no. Sarah was shocked and started crying, saying that place was a nightmare that she has to work through to this day. I said, I know. I heard the extremely strict rules that place had before. She screams, if you knew it was horrible for me, then why don't you regret sending me there? And I told her she would have ended up in jail without it. She hasn't talked to me since, so am I the jerk? Edit. I was told this is relevant. No, she has told me nothing bad happened to her there. The program allowed each kid to have a flip phone 24/7 to call their parents at any time. I received many calls at all times of the day from her. The first week she was there, I received over 100 calls a day of her screaming at me. I even visited at random times to make sure everything was okay. No warning for the program, just showed up. The hardest part for Sarah, she said, was losing her freedom. There was a schedule she had to follow. Nothing would get her out of it. If she didn't help clean the kitchen, then she would be assigned that task until she did. Entitled Mom thinks our fresh milk is too expensive, wants to buy calf instead. After reading and listening to stories from this subreddit for over a year now, I have dreamed of the day I would encounter a Karen or entitled parent in the wild, never expecting it to ever happen. But today was the day, and boy, what an encounter it was. So for a little bit of background, my grandma works on a medium-sized dairy farm as kind of a manager, and I, 18 female, help her out from time to time. We have a thing called milk filling station. It's basically a vending machine where you can buy fresh milk from us, and it's €1 per liter. We're located on a hill a little outside a small village and surrounded by meadows and forests, so we do get some hikers or families on a nice walk from time to time, especially on the weekends, and they usually look at the calves and buy some milk. One shift here usually includes 4 people. Everyone has different jobs to fulfill, so most of the time you're alone just doing your task, and my job is essential for the milking process, as it includes bringing the cows to the milking station and back to their herds. And now on to the actual story. As I've mentioned, I'm alone most of the time, just doing my thing, running around inside the farm. It's a restricted area. We have signs up since it can be quite dangerous, but the gates are open to make work easier and for ventilation, so theoretically everyone could walk in. Still, I was kinda surprised when I, in the midst of literally shoveling cow dew, was met with a rather annoyed ahem behind me. I turned around, shovel still in hand, and saw a woman maybe in her mid-30s standing before me, way too overdressed to be seen anywhere near a farm. She also didn't look like she was on a casual walk with her family. At least I wouldn't do one in the high heels she was wearing. She was looking at me rather angrily, and I immediately knew that this probably was the day I'd been waiting for, although I never expected it to be here of all places. Before I could even so much as open my mouth, she already started speaking in a very condescending tone to me. "Finally, I've been looking for someone to help me for ages. Why are none of you doing your job and being there when you're needed?" I was instantly annoyed with this woman, because how dare she come in here and talk to me like that? And also, what job was she referring to? Because I, for one, was doing mine right at this moment, and it was strictly timed. I had to get stuff done with zero time to listen to this lady. Still, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt and be nice. "Sorry, if you're referring to the office in the front, there usually is no one since we're all in here doing our job. What's the problem? Maybe I can help." I thought that maybe she's had a flat tire or something around here and needed help, because I legitimately had no idea what someone dressed like her could want on a dairy farm. She just scoffed at me. "Huh? Unbelievable. You should be over there in case someone needs your help like I do. Anyways, your milk is too expensive." Me. "I'm sorry, what?" "I said, your milk is too expensive. I want a better price." She was saying every word slowly and loudly as if she thought I was disabled. Me. "Oh, you're talking about the vending machine. I'm sorry, but that's a fixed price. I can't change that." And in my opinion, she cut me off. "I didn't ask for your opinion. It's way cheaper at the supermarket, but my daughter wanted to try fresh milk, so we drove here. You should match the price at the supermarkets, or you won't sell much." Me. "Ma'am, we're not a supermarket. We're selling the leftover fresh milk so it doesn't go to waste." She cuts me off again. "What? That's leftover milk? Ew! And to imagine my daughter could have drank that." Now, for clarification, when I said leftover milk, I meant that it was fresh milk, as in barely out of the cow fresh, that we weren't able to sell to the company which collects our milk because they have fixed numbers, and if we produce more milk than those numbers, we would have to throw it away. But with the vending machine, at least some of it still gets sold. If you want fresher milk than that, you would have to milk the cow yourself right into the bottle. I started to try and explain this to the entitled mom, but she immediately cut me off again. No, this is unacceptable. Neither me nor my child will drink old milk." And then the dreaded sentence came. "I want to speak to your manager." I already had enough of this BS, pun intended. And as I've already said, a strictly timed job that I had to get back to, because we were in the middle of milking our cows and this lady was literally holding up the whole process by holding up me. So I was more than happy to agree and get her to my manager, my grandma, and have her out of my hair. I just motioned for her to follow me and speed walked in the direction of the front office, while the lady was trying to keep up in her high heels without breaking her ankles. Now, our office is in kind of another building and the door closest to us was locked, so we had to walk around the building, across the parking lot for the workers, and through another entrance that happened to be right beside the boxes we kept the newborn calves in. This also was the place where I met the before-mentioned daughter of entitled mom. The girl was maybe 10 years old and happily watching the calves and petting them when we came into view. As soon as she saw her mom, she ran to her and started excitingly jumping up and down. Entitled girl. Mom, look at the cute calves." She dragged her mom over to the boxes. Entitled girl. "Look, it's so cute. I named her Emma. Can we keep her, please?" I expected the entitled mom to maybe say something along the lines of, "A cow is not a pet," or "We don't have the space," or maybe, "I don't know how to take care of a cow." But boy, was I wrong. Instead, the mom turns to me and asks completely serious, "How much are these?" Now, although we do sell our male calves since they are of no use to us, I for one wasn't sure how much exactly this calf was worth. Pretty sure that there was a registration process involved in owning a cow and in no way, shape, or form authorized to just sell a calf like that. And on top of that, cows aren't exactly animals you can just put in your yard and be done with. Me. I'm sorry, but I was cut off again. "No, I asked how much it is. Tell me." Me. "Ma'am, That's a cow, not a pet. I know, but your milk is way too expensive anyways. Just sell me one of those if my daughter wants it, and we will have our own, really fresh milk. At this point, I strongly considered just walking away because there was no way this woman could be serious. She wanted to buy an animal that would grow up to be huge, heavy, and strong enough to hurt you if you handled them wrong. Not only that, but also a cow of a breed that needs to be milked twice a day because it produces as much milk as possible, which is around 30 to 50 liters at our farm. All that because €1 per liter for fresh milk apparently was too much, and her daughter thought our calves were cute. They are, but that's not the point. Plus, you need to properly take care of them, feed them right, and just getting a calf won't give you instant milk. She has to grow up, get pregnant, give birth, etc. All around, this entitled mom would have to wait another 24 to 28 months until her calf starts giving milk, and then repeat the process every year, so she would have new calves to take care of every year just to keep her one cow running, so to speak. Instead of telling her directly how stupid, time and money consuming this idea is, I decided to try and take the more diplomatic way. Ma'am, I understand, but it's not that easy. I'm afraid I'm not able. Then get me someone who's able. I want to speak to your manager anyways. Why do you have to be such an incompetent worker? How old are you, 15? Kids shouldn't talk back to adults. That's where I had it. And so I just blurted out the best thing I could think of at the time. I am an adult, and you should stop talking to me like that. I'm not obligated to help you, and in fact, we could sue you for trespassing on private property. How dare you threaten me? Young lady, that is no way to talk to a person older than you. Learn some respect. I demand to speak to your manager. I will get you fired for this. As if she was called, my grandma stepped out of the building right at that moment, probably because she heard the commotion. Grandma, what's going on here? Entitled mom. Oh, good. Are you the manager of this place? Grandma. At the moment, yes. How can I help you? Entitled mom. This worker of yours was incredibly rude. She threatened me and my daughter and refused to help us. She even tried to assault me right before you came outside. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been on time. Entitled mom was trying to squeeze some fake tears out at this point, quickly swiping them away with her finger before they could ruin her very thick layer of makeup. Entitled mom. All we wanted was to ask if we could get the milk you are selling a little cheaper. And my daughter here really likes this calf over there, so we thought about buying it. My grandma was just silently listening to this woman's story, arms crossed and an eyebrow raised, because she could smell the BS from 3 miles away. Grandma. Ma'am, this is my granddaughter you're talking about, and I know for a fact that she wouldn't do any of that. Entitled mom went awfully quiet at that. Grandma. So, about the milk. I maybe would have helped you out if you hadn't just lied to my face, but now I kindly ask you to just pay the full price as everyone else does. And the calf, I'm afraid I won't be able to sell it to you. Entitled mom. This is outrageous. I'm a paying customer. I would pay for this calf. Why are you refusing? My daughter wants a cow, and she likes this one there. Entitled girl. Her name is Emma. Grandma. Ma'am, that won't give you a cow. It will give you a bull. It's a male calf. Entitled mom. You're lying. You just don't want to sell it because it's pretty. My grandma just silently pointed to the big male symbol on the side of the box, clearly labeling it as a boy. At this point, the entitled mom just huffed and mumbled something about stupid, uneducated people from the countryside and how she would never come back here again, which I would also really appreciate. The entitled girl was whining loudly about her Emma, while her mom was dragging her back to their expensive-looking car, and my grandma and I watched them drive away before having a good laugh about the whole story. Karen ruined my son's car. I'm pressing charges. I'm 39, male, and my son, 17, Bryce, dated our neighbor Lana, who's 17, for a year. They broke up mid-January for reasons I don't know. I won't sugarcoat this. I never liked Lana. She always seemed a little unhinged, controlling and aggressive. She's always demanding Bryce's attention, and there were quite a few times when she showed up to our house out of nowhere, whether it was 7 a.m. or 11 p.m., because Bryce wasn't answering his phone, screaming and calling him a cheater when it wasn't even like that. The thought of our son being mistreated by his girlfriend made us worry so much. My wife and I tried to talk him out of that relationship. We said how it wasn't normal nor healthy. We didn't want to force the breakup because we feared Lana would lash out to him, so we tried to do it in a sneaky way. We don't know if it worked, but they ended up breaking up. He said that after he broke up with her, Lana didn't contact him, which was weird because he was expecting her to go nuts. But I told him that if fate didn't care, he better not tease it. Now, the problem is that we bought my son a car for Christmas. Nothing fancy, but enough to get him to school, his job, and eventually college. He parks it in our driveway outside our home. Ever since the month began, we had been finding scratches all over the car. We knew Lana was doing it, but since it was minimal, my son decided not to do anything, even if we could prove that it was her. We have cameras. Still, something smelled bad for me, so I decided to switch one of the cameras facing his car directly just in case. Well, 2 weeks ago, we got up and found my son's car covered in a lot of crap. Paint, glue, feathers, confetti. The door handles were wrecked. Flat tires, paint all over the windows. You get the picture. Bryce and my wife were so distraught. We called the police and I handed them the security camera footage that showed Lana and her brother, 23 male, destroying my son's car. We pressed charges and needless to say, Lana's brother went straight to jail. But since she's still a minor, her parents want to make a deal. But I refused. I don't think she should get a way out. Before the police were here, she was laughing her face off, and she tried to play it cool. If she thought this was funny, then she's old enough to face the consequences. My wife and I plan to stand our ground. They said they'll buy my son a better car and put Lana on therapy, but it is not enough. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This is the wake-up call that she needs. This is also the wake-up call that her brother and her parents need. I can't picture my very much adult brothers helping me wreck my ex's car just because I'm bitter. They'd rather snitch to my parents and help me avoid getting time in jail than being the cool bro. Not the jerk. I could see the older brothers going along with it if she lied to them about why she was doing it. Revenge for cheating, for example. I can see that. She seems like the type to make up a crazy story so her brother would help her get her revenge. Well, what do you think? Should OP press charges on Lana or not? Please let us know. I'd let it go as long as they buy my son a DeLorean. Am I the jerk for not letting my homeless brother live with me? I'm adopted, but my brother and sister are the biological kids. I've had some issues in my teenage years, and I wasn't the perfect kid, but my brother was a bit wild too. However, since I'm the adopted one, my siblings have always given me extra crap for my failings. A few years ago, Dad got sick, so I moved home to help him and Mom out. I contributed to bills, took care of Dad, took care of the dogs, cooked every day, cleaned, and worked full-time myself, and just really tried to be as helpful as possible. I even offered to pay rent, but my mom said no. Cut to me having a car accident, going to pick up Dad's meds, and Dad and Mom buying me a used car so I could keep taking Dad to appointments and as a thank you for all the help. Well, my siblings came for that Christmas, heard about the car, and freaked out. They said I didn't deserve anything and that I was using Mom and Dad. My brother cornered me and said as soon as Dad passed, I had a month to move out and stop leeching off of Mom, or else. Dad passed shortly after that Christmas, and I began planning my move, and Mom was really upset. She kept pushing for me to stay, but in the back of my head, I had my brother's threat and just didn't feel comfortable staying. I ended up getting a place just up the street so I could still help her. After I moved, I ended up getting really lucky financially. I was, within a year of renting, able to buy a house near Mom and have been doing well for myself. Last year, my mom's sister, who was also recently widowed, came to live with her and brought her 2 grandkids she is the guardian of, so my mom's house is full and she's happy. I help out and watch the kids a lot and still do most of the house maintenance stuff, so I'm over a lot. On one of my visits, my mom and aunt were discussing what to do because my brother needed to move home since his wife kicked him out. I offered to get the kids bunk beds and help move them into one room, and my mom was very grateful. A week later, my brother called asking if he could just live with me since he didn't want to share a house with 2 kids. I have a spare room, but I don't want to live with him. He's treated me like crap for over 10 years at this point and never has a nice thing to say, behind my back usually, from my teenage years when I was struggling. He's vocal about not considering me family. He said he doesn't even want me at our mom's funeral or in her will. I don't want anything from her and never ask for anything. She just offers things sometimes. The animosity is palpable. I would offer to take in one of the kids, but they are young and need to be with their caretaker, so I think he just needs to suck it up and stay at my mom's. My mom knows how he is to me and would never ask me to take him in, but my aunt is confused why I wouldn't offer that, as it makes sense and another person in my mom's house will make it cramped. Some friends are saying that after all my mom has done for me, I should suck it up and let her son, my brother, stay with me, but I really don't want to. Does that make me the jerk? Not the jerk. He's incredibly cruel to you. Time for him to reap what he sowed. Tell your aunt why you won't let him stay, and she will no longer be confused. This seems like a straightforward, not the jerk situation. You know you aren't. He treats you like crap, and as far as he's concerned, he's not even your family. What do you owe him? He can sleep on a curb. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let your brother live with you or not? Please let us know. I'd help him find a used tent on eBay. I left the restaurant after my boyfriend started drinking his juice with 3 straws. Might not seem like a huge deal, but here's some context. I, female 30, have been with my boyfriend, male 32, for a few months. Unlike him, I come from a well-off background, and last week I invited him out to an upscale restaurant for a dinner together. We got there, sat down at our table, and chatted for some time. He ordered some orange juice, then asked the waitress to bring him 2 more straws besides the one he had with the juice. I was puzzled. I asked if he was expecting one of his friends, and he laughed and said, "Oh no, not after what they did to me last night." I was like, "What?" but watched to see what he was doing. The waitress came back with the 2 straws, then took our orders. The minute she walked away, my boyfriend put the other 2 straws in his juice and basically started sipping with the 3 straws, making an unbelievably absurd and annoying sound. I was floored. I asked what he was doing and why. He nonchalantly smiled and said he could drink it faster this way. I got mad and quite embarrassed because people were literally side-eyeing me since I'm a regular. I told him to stop, but he didn't. I said that I'd leave if he wouldn't, and he made eye contact and kept sipping. I had it. I said I wasn't going to continue to be humiliated any longer and grabbed my stuff and made my way out. He shouted for me to wait, but I didn't. 30 minutes later, he started rage texting me about how I overreacted and how I keep ruining good times worrying about what those snobs think. Then talked about how ridiculous I was to walk out like that and repeatedly texted about how I should just stop being a pretentious snob just because I hang around them, which I find really offensive. He expected me to apologize for making a scene and walking out like that over something so stupid and harmless. Not the jerk. What he was doing was obnoxious and you asked him to stop. He refused. You told him what the consequences would be if he continued, and he apparently accepted them until you followed through. Dump him and find an adult to date. If the boyfriend wants to look obnoxious and draw attention by making noises, he can do that at home. Instead, he deliberately made a scene and refused to stop even after being told not to. It's asking the bare minimum at an upscale restaurant to have basic table manners, not snobbery. Agreed, not the jerk. OP, don't think that you're exempt from his lumping you in with the other pretentious snobs. He's already told you what he thinks of you and is now expecting you to lower your etiquette standards so he can freely act like a kid. His plan is to mooch off of you while simultaneously shaming you for being better off than him. Am I the jerk for taking my mother's side over my wife's over childcare and future plans? My wife and I have 3 kids between the ages of 2 and 8. I also have 3 other siblings who have kids as well. My parents love being grandparents, but are really busy. My mom is currently the president of a fiber arts guild in her local area and travels a lot to shows, conferences, and visits other guilds in their national network. She's also flown around and asked to teach classes even internationally and got a diploma from people who do embroidery for the Queen of England, literally. Growing up, my mother was a stay-at-home mom, but after we grew up, she got really involved with her crafts, and my dad, who is retired, is super supportive and travels with her to these conferences and was her campaign manager when she went for president. His reasoning is that she supported his career all those years, so now it's his turn to take on the support role, so he travels with her and jokes that he's her secretary now. My mom recently expressed wanting to get her bachelor's degree in this particular field, and the course is only taught in the UK. We are in another part of Europe. So my dad and mom want to move to London for 3 years using the money they got from downsizing the family home. My siblings and I are a bit disappointed that we won't have our parents around as much, but we also understand how much our mom has given up to raise us and how much she loves her crafts. The problem for my wife and I is that my parents were a huge source of childcare for us during the times they were free. My parents live in a different country, and so they can't be as involved as they like. My nieces and nephews have another set of grandparents who are hands-on. My wife feels that it's unfair of my parents to move to London like this when our kids are young and need their grandparents the most for a degree that my mom doesn't need to use because she already teaches classes and she's president of a guild. So getting a bachelor's won't actually help in any way, and my parents are just draining the money they got from the sale of our family home. She expressed this to my mom last Saturday over dinner, and my mom is now hurt and wavering on her decision. My siblings are furious at my wife, and we ended up leaving the dinner because while things didn't turn into a shouting match, my wife was basically told she had no say in this because it wasn't her mom and she wasn't family. I thought that was a harsh thing to say to my wife, but I also think our issues shouldn't be factored in my mom pursuing her dreams. My wife basically told her that being a grandmother should be the most important thing in her life. Now my wife is angry with me for not backing her up when my siblings told her to butt out, and for agreeing that my parents should go to London for 3 years even though it's going to make things harder for us. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your wife is really entitled. Grandparents are great if they can provide childcare, but they shouldn't be made to feel guilty for enjoying their own life. Getting childcare is you and your wife's responsibility, not your parents'. Your mom deserves to do what makes her happy to without the guilt. Edit. Also, my not the jerk was about him supporting the mother. OP is now arguing and name-calling in the comments for people agreeing with his decision, which is bizarre and seriously misplaced. He's also the jerk for that. Not the jerk. Your wife gets no say in this. Neither do you or your siblings. Your mother makes her own choices. Kids don't need their grandparents. Grandparents are a luxury. Your wife is just mad about losing access to all the free childcare. Not the jerk. 1. You and your wife are not entitled to your parents' time. 2. Your wife should have discussed this thoroughly with you in private first, so you had a shared plan before talking to your mom. 3. Because she didn't do number 2, you got caught between supporting your wife or supporting the right decision. That's your wife's fault. So none of this is your fault. You're not the jerk. You can't move away and enjoy your life. We need to use you to watch our kids. Gotta love these Karens. Unknown number accused me of being a thief. So here's the story. It's 3:08 in the morning. I get a call from an unknown number. I answer and the person started screaming at me. I automatically hang up on them because being 17 and suddenly being screamed at over the phone really does something to you. Not even 6 minutes later, I get these texts. We've got them, the jerk, and we've got me, Jace. Jerk. Hello? Why did you hang up? Me. Who is this? Why are you calling me at such a late hour? This is the boss of the store you work at. Me. Dude, I'm only 17. I don't have a job yet. Please stop harassing me. I didn't get a response after that. So 6:02 rolls around and I'm still in bed trying to rest from being woken up so early. I get 21 missed calls from the same number threatening me, saying they're going to tell corporate that I'm stealing money and food out of the store and they will have me fired. Then they threaten to call the police and have me arrested for stealing over $300 from the cash register. I do not work yet. I text the number and the following conversation goes. Me. Will you please stop texting and calling me? I do not work for your company. I do not work at all. I'm 17 and I'm still trying to finish high school. Jerk. Don't lie to me. I know you work for us, or else I wouldn't have your number. Me. Maybe the employee you hired gave you a false number. This is a private number. Don't lie to me, Jim. Me. My name is not Jim. I do not work for you. Leave me alone before I report you to the police for harassment. They proceeded to call me 10 more times before giving up. I went online and filed a report on the number. Turns out that the number wasn't even real. It was coming from an app that could be easily erased. What kind of sicko does this stuff? I would show the screenshots, but I deleted the messages because I was sick of looking at them. Am I the jerk for insisting that my husband drives my mother-in-law to the hospital instead of calling an ambulance? My mother-in-law was at our house a couple days ago to see some new furniture I bought. She fainted and fell off on her back. My husband freaked out and went straight to call an ambulance. I told him that he should drive her to the hospital himself since his car was working instead of paying X amount of money for an ambulance. He said no and insisted on an ambulance. I tried to convince him since the hospital wasn't far, but he blew up at me and said that his hands were shaking and he couldn't drive her there. He yelled at me to move out of the way and called her an ambulance. I decided to step back, but I was pretty mad. He went with her and got back in the evening. He started going off on me about how I behaved while his mom was injured. I replied that there was no need to waste money on an ambulance ride, especially since mother-in-law was conscious and also since we had his car and he could have driven her there himself. He lashed out, saying that he was in no state to drive and that I was ridiculous to care about how much an ambulance ride cost instead of his mom's health. I told him it's my house too, and he should get my input on whether to call an ambulance or not. Besides that, we have a policy to only call ambulances for the people who live in the house, not visitors. He said I was mistaken for getting in his face and insisting there was no need for an ambulance. He's been sulking, claiming that I don't care about his mom's well-being and I only care about money, and he's refusing to let it go. Am I the jerk? This is one of the dumbest things I've read on Reddit, and that's saying a lot. You actually have a policy to only call an ambulance for the people who live in your house, but not for visitors? Could you be any more of a jerk? Who actually plans for emergencies ahead of time in regards to who you will call an ambulance for? Sorry you fell and broke your hip, Grandma. Walk it off and rub some dirt on it, then get in the car because you don't live here. Yes, you're the jerk. A huge one. Besides, you know who pays for the ambulance ride? The person who needs to be transported, not the person whose house they come to. You're the jerk, OP. I know, right? She acts like she's the one who's going to have to pay for it. What a jerk. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Customer orders large amount of material, goes somewhere else without canceling to save a few bucks. This happened a while ago. I work as a delivery driver for a building supply store. I have one of the highest driver's licenses and a crane operator certification, so I was the only one who could do this delivery. The customer had ordered a large amount of material one week with the request for it to be delivered the first of the next week. Some of the stuff he wanted we didn't have, so it had to get ordered in. The weekend before the delivery, I had gathered all the material and separated it into different piles because it was going to 2 different floors of a house, and to also make it easier for my crane to handle safely. I spent probably over an hour properly organizing and collecting the order. The Monday comes and order said to call before going. So I give the customer a call and he goes, "Oh, I didn't want it ordered. I just wanted it quoted." I was annoyed, thinking a store worker who took the order messed up. So after I was finished talking to the customer, I looked at the order to see who made it. That's when things began to get odd. The person who did the order is not one to make a mistake like that. Unfortunately, they were off that day, so I had to wait until the next day to talk to them. The next day they come in and tell them what happened. The worker was mad, saying things I really can't put here. But short story, they were extremely mad at the customer, saying, "I know the difference between the words quote and order," and they asked for it to be delivered. So they phoned the customer, and I heard later on when things came to light, they really let the customer have it. Apparently he did order it, but after he ordered it, he went somewhere else, and this other place offered him 5 cents per each individual piece of material cheaper than we were. I did the math. For everything he ordered, he saved himself $6, and for whatever reason, he felt it was better to pretend that we misheard and say he wanted a quote rather than just calling and canceling his order. And apparently, this was the second time this customer had done something like that. They said they were flagging his account. That way, they know if he orders again to not do anything until there is a guarantee he wants it. I suggested he should be charged a non-refundable fee of $20 whenever he orders, or a restocking fee, but nothing ever came of that. Am I the jerk for stating I will not financially provide for my sister-in-law after my mother-in-law passes away? My sister-in-law is the oldest of 4 siblings, but lives at home with mother-in-law still paying a lot of sister-in-law's bills. Sister-in-law is 60 years old, works full-time, doesn't have to pay food or rent, and still borrows money from one sibling every 2 weeks. She no longer requests money from us, but that's a different story. Sister-in-law makes more money than I do. She just blows through it as soon as she can get her hands on it. My mother-in-law told me that my husband will agree to support sister-in-law after mother-in-law is gone because that's what family does. I said absolutely not. It isn't our job to pay her way so she can get her nails done every 2 weeks and eat at restaurants 2 times a day. plus travel to an expensive theme park to spend time with her grandbabies. Grandbabies live in the same town. Travel isn't required to see them. My mother-in-law has decreed that I am a selfish jerk because I would not agree to take care of a woman 15 years my senior. If she were disabled or legitimately unable to work, I'd be fine paying the monthly power bill or buying her groceries. The only reason we have money and a nice house is because we don't blow money. Am I the jerk for saying no to this plan? My husband agrees he will not support sister-in-law just so she can spend her money to do fun stuff. The conflict it is causing is between me and mother-in-law because I'm vocal about saying no. It's causing conflict in his family because we have money, and somehow that means we should be responsible. Not the jerk. Time for your husband to set boundaries with your mother-in-law. OP. She wouldn't listen. She just says I'm making him say all these things. I don't visit anymore because I'm tired of hearing it. Not the jerk. If sister-in-law has grandbabies, why isn't mother-in-law pressuring sister-in-law's kids to take care of her? Not that I think that's the right answer either, but it's interesting that mother-in-law thinks it's your husband's job to take care of her instead of, sister-in-law's family, if family is so important. Karen's sister acts like she's pregnant even though she's not. I, 35, female, am pregnant with my sister's 30 female child. My sister has some fertility issues and is not able to have a safe pregnancy. I offered to carry the baby for her and her husband. I'm now currently 6.5 months along and everything is going well. Once we found out I was pregnant, my sister made the decision to live like she herself is the one who's pregnant. I found it odd, but I didn't see an issue with it. I understood that she's going through an emotional time. I mainly thought this was going to be something just between her and her husband. I was wrong, and she's begun to act pregnant in her daily life. At first, it was just small things, like having her husband run out to get her food she was craving, but it developed into things like wearing maternity wear. She also gets annoyed if I talk about my cravings or pregnancy symptoms around her. These things don't bother me much, and I just think my sister wants to feel involved. Today, my sister wanted to go shopping to look at baby things since the stores have reopened in our area. The day started with her getting angry whenever sales staff would talk to me. I would explain to the salesperson that my sister is the mother whenever it was needed. After a few stores, we arrived at a baby retailer where she wanted to make a baby registry. By this point, I was extremely tired and wanted to go home. I had told my sister this, and she promised this would be the last store. I must have looked exhausted because as we were waiting, the salesperson brought over a chair for me to sit in while the registry paperwork was done. When she brought it over, she did say something like, "Here's a chair for mom." I didn't correct the salesperson this time and just sat down. My sister told me to get up and give her the chair after I had sat down. I asked her why and tried explaining that I was tired. My sister berated me by saying that the salesperson said the chair was for the mom and that she was supposed to sit. She said that this was her registry appointment and how dare I act like this was all about me. She said she was the one who was the expectant mother and that she needed to sit down now. I told my sister that yes, she is going to be the mother, but I am the one that is currently pregnant. I snapped at her that she is not actually pregnant and does not get how exhausting it can be. I told her I'm trying my best to appease her, but she's being ridiculous. My sister began to cry, saying that I was shaming her for not being able to get pregnant and that I was making fun of her. I tried to defend myself and tell her that's not what I meant. She wouldn't listen and ran out of the store. Everyone in the store was staring at us. They were looking at me like I was a complete monster after hearing what my sister said. My mother said that I should have just let my sister have the seat. I know this whole thing must seem so small and stupid because it's about a chair. I don't know if I am the jerk in this situation or not. The hotel you wanted to stay at no longer exists. Back in the late 90s, I worked bar in a small town in rural Ireland. About 500 people, 3 pubs, 1 hotel. It's a wee seaside village and quite picturesque, and is therefore plagued by tourists during any holidays. We lived directly opposite the hotel. The hotel was about to be razed to the ground and rebuilt without the 60 years of nicotine stains. The demolish was due to start in January and the work was due to be completed sometime in 2003. It's a small town. Everyone knows everything as long as it's about someone else's business. The hotel's reception phone number is 1 number away from my parents' landline number. It's New Year's Eve, or more accurately, 4 a.m. on New Year's Day. I'm home from my shift dealing with drunk jerks that as this was in the 90s, want nothing but Baileys and cream de menthe shots and Bacardi breezers, with the occasional Irish coffee and a pint of Guinness that they'll order last as an afterthought and then complain about the wait. 4 a.m., my parents' living room. I'm having a wee decompress and a whiskey. Phone rings. Instinct kicks in. Town name Harbor Bar. Happy New Year. A slurred Belfast accent winds into my auditory canal. For most people reading this, when you think of an Irish accent, you probably think of a Cork or Galway accent, nice and lyrical. This is not the case with a spidey Belfast accent. Think of a dentist drill that runs on tonic wine ordering McDonald's through its nasal passages. All right, I've had a cracking time tonight. We're booking the same nights for next year. Room 109, Jamie Jerkface. Me. Oh, sorry mate. The hotel is closing in January and reopening in 2003. And the number for reception is 555-5545. This is a private residence. How the heck would you know that? You said this was the bar. Just put me through to reception, you lazy jerk. Me. Hey, buzz off, mate. Hangs up. Phone rings again. Don't you dare hang up on me, you cow lover. Belfast people often accuse the rurals of cow loving, which is odd because pigs are so much lower maintenance and you can test cosmetics on them to pretty them up. Town name hotel reception is 555-5545. This is a private residence, 555-5554. Don't call again. This happens a few more times because the daft drunk jerk is just hitting redial. It escalates with varying degrees as we've both been drinking, me to a lesser extent. I unplug the phone from the wall. A few minutes pass, I'm formulating a plan. I plug the phone back in. The phone rings. I put on my best receptionist voice. Good morning, town name hotel reception. How can I help you? Is this Mr. Jerkface from room 109? How may I be of service? That's better. I want to book for the next year's same night. Certainly, Mr. Jerkface. We have a 50% loyalty discount as your previous guest. Same days? Right. Okay, that's all booked in for next year. Arriving on the morning of the 31st, yes? Brilliant. Wonderful. We will see you then. That year, I went away to uni, came back for Christmas. Many things happened in the time in between, but then New Year's Eve came along. My folks and I were in the living room looking out at a gigantic hole that used to be the hotel, and our other windows look out but over the bay, and having a few beers. A car we don't recognize pulls up opposite the hole where the hotel used to be, and three confused-looking Belfast Spideys get out beside the big hole where town name hotel was. Something clicks in the back of my head, and I'm just laughing. I explain the whole thing to my dad, who I'd relayed the story to. These jerks drove about an hour to get here just to find out they've got nowhere to stay. We enjoy the show and open fresh tins as they start screaming at each other in front of our house. It was a fun New Year's Eve. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend she can't show me any more TikToks? The last few months, TikTok has become my 20 male, girlfriend's 20 female, only personality trait. Sitting watching TV together? TikTok. Laying in bed? TikTok. Standing around making breakfast? TikTok. I wouldn't really care, except she insists that I watch every video with her. Every time I look away, it's, oh, look at this one. And then she proceeds to show me the 100th unfunny video of the day. She has a bad habit of making me watch her on her phone, showing me literally every single thing that comes on her screen. Whatever, I can just nod and pretend I care. But now she'll show me these stupid videos and then try to explain why they're funny to me when I don't laugh, which only annoys me more. The second I wake up until the second I go to sleep, she's trying to show me TikToks. Clearly, she hadn't gotten the message that I literally do not care what these random unfunny teens post on the internet. I've told her before to take it easy with showing me the TikToks because I don't find them enjoyable like she does. But she continues to constantly show me more, only now she adds this, oh, this is the last one, I swear it's really funny. Spoiler, it's not. This morning I had been awake for all of 2 minutes when the TikTokscapade started. 3 waste of time videos later, I rolled over to ignore them better, and she got all sad and tried guilt-tripping me about watching those stupid things. Well, I finally had enough and rolled over and told her she's not allowed to show me TikToks anymore. They're annoying, boring, and a waste of time, and I can't stand to watch another single video. She called me a jerk and said I really hurt her feelings, But unfortunately, I really do not care. I hate TikTok. It's a cancer. And besides, it's not like I'm saying I hate anything she's created. Am I the jerk? Edit. So I've had a few questions about shared interests and this being her hobby. Her and I have been together for over 3 years, and this girl is the most talented artist, dancer, and writer I've ever met. So many passions I love about her. We're both in college, living in the same building, so we spend basically all of our time together. We have plenty of things we do together. Video games, movies, cooking, we even make puzzles together. The only thing that gets to me is the dang obsession with TikTok. My Karen sister is trying to steal my fiancé. I'm 24, female, and my sister, who's 23, had my nephew Joe during her first year in college. The father is absent in his life and only pays child support. She has always hated the idea of my nephew growing up without a father figure, and since our only brother is 17 and our dad passed 10 years ago, she dated recklessly for a while and introduced him to a bunch of dudes. 3 years ago, I met my now fiancé, Gabriel, 28, male. He's really sweet and he adores my family. He's financially stable and is good with kids, has a bunch of nephews on his own, and comes from a good big family. We've decided to be child-free, and if something happens to my sister and a few of Gabe's siblings, we're meant to be their legal guardians. For the past year, my sister has grown comfortable with pushing Joe around Gabe. She always invites him to my nephew's activities, which is fine, but she acts as if Gabe were her guest, and I'm his +1, not otherwise. Plus, my brother used to be the one who got invited, and he's not anymore. She asks Gabe to drive her and Joe to places, and my mom pointed out how they look like a family when he does it. She jokes about how much of a dad Gabriel is for Joe, and she had the audacity to ask him once if he was comfortable with adopting Joe, but she was drunk, so I'll give her that. Neither Gabe or I are comfortable with this. He doesn't know how to push it aside without hurting their feelings. My mom has told my sister countless times how this is inappropriate, but my sister always gets defensive and says that Joe chose him and is not her fault. Things blew up last weekend when Joe asked Gabriel if he could call him dad because mom said it was fine. My sister was looking at them with the biggest smile on her face, and I could notice how my mom and my brother were expecting his answer. Neither of them agree with it though. He sat Joe on his knee and kindly explained how he wasn't his dad or even a dad figure, that he was Aunt OP's soon-to-be husband, and that made him his favorite uncle. But even if he wasn't his dad, he would never leave him and they'll always be best friends. Joe, being the sweet kid he is, laughed and smiled and said that it was okay. Then he ran to the living room to play with something. I think the situation resolved itself okay, but my sister didn't like it and started to fight with us. My mom kept telling her to shut up, but she was saying things like, "What's wrong with you two? How can you say no to a little kid? He sees you as a father, so you should be proud of that." I had enough, and I told her that Gabriel wasn't Joe's dad and that she needed to stop acting as if he was, because it was honestly embarrassing. She called me a selfish jerk and said that I was jealous of her kid. I just rolled my eyes and we decided to leave after. She later sent me a text saying that it was best if we step out of Joe's life for a while, or we will end up confusing him because he doesn't understand that Gabriel is not his dad. But as far as I could see, he understood it pretty well. ETA. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that we are already Joe's legal guardians, but if something happens to my sister, and we hope it never does, we'll be taking care of him. Also, my sister is not right, I agree with that, but I doubt she's ever violent. Not the jerk, but you know that your sister wants your fiancé, right? This right here. Sister is absolutely going to try to get fiancé to dump OP if she hasn't already. OP. As far as I know, she's never tried something like that. Neither my mom, Gabriel, nor I think that my sister might be emotionally interested in him. She only wants him as my nephew's father, but I don't think she's in love with him or anything like that. I find it hard to believe she'd be pushing the dad angle without having any romantic interest in him. In any case, she could probably use some therapy to help with whatever issues she's dealing with. A normal person doesn't see their sister's fiancé as a viable father for their kid. I don't find it too unbelievable. The kid is an excuse to get Gabriel to do stuff for her without needing to reciprocate in any way. Can you take us to the beach? It's for the kid. Can you help me with the bills? It's for the kid. Can you chip in for the kid's expensive holiday gifts, school supplies, whatever? I want to be seen as a great mom, but I don't want to pay for all this stuff myself. You're not doing it so I can spend more on me, you're doing it for the kid. If the sister can foster a relationship between Gabriel and Joe that makes Gabriel feel like he needs to step up for the fatherless kid, lest he feel oh so guilty, she can keep pushing and exploiting that. It'll be like getting child support from two men, and unlike the actual deadbeat father, Gabriel is around to babysit and drive her places, and all of those nice things. She's jealous of your life and wants to marry your fiancé and make him her kid's dad. She's weird, not the jerk. Distance yourselves. Not the jerk. If all your sister wants is a male role model in her son's life, then she should be happy with Uncle Gabriel. Given that she's pushing him to be dad so much, it sounds like your sister is trying to poach your fiancé. Next, she'll start asking him to sleep in the same room as her so Joe doesn't get confused. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Definitely the sister. Somebody get her some milk. My dad always sides with his girlfriend and her daughter. My parents split custody. It's pretty random. Some days I'm home and sometimes I'm by my dad's. I'm 15, female. Dad started dating Jane a while ago, maybe a year. She has a daughter, Mandy, that's 12 or 13. Then they started spending a lot of time at my dad's. They have their own apartment, but they're still always with him. The first time they stayed over when I was there, somehow Mandy ended up in my bed. Her mom has this cot/bed thing that she bought by my dad's for her, but somehow I woke up in the middle of the night and she was in my bed. I kicked her out. Then my dad and Jane said, that was mean, and I have a full anyway, so I should share. There's other stuff. I have a chair in my dad's living room I got for my gift. It's comfy, and when I move out, it'll go with me. Well, Mandy always wants to race for the chair. Even when I win the race, my dad makes me let her sit in it because they're guests. So I end up sitting on the floor because my dad has a recliner and Jane lays across the couch. So I stay in my room instead. My dad has tried to get me to come out of my room and be with them. But why when I have to sit on the floor like a dog? He keeps saying I'm being a difficult teenager. That's not it though. One time my mom and I went and did some stuff before she dropped me off. She had brought me a blanket that had my favorite team's logo on it. I was excited to sleep with it. Stupid, I know. So she let me take it to my dad's. My dad made me share it with Mandy because it wasn't fair that I got something and Mandy didn't. It's not just the blanket it's happened with. It's anything that I have to share. But if Mandy has something I'd like to use, he tells me it's hers, and if she doesn't want to let me use it, she doesn't have to. One time, Mandy was reading one of my books, and Jane and my dad started fighting. Jane wanted to leave, so Mandy wanted to take my book, but I said no, so she wouldn't leave. My dad yells at me to, just let her have it. They made up, so I got it back, but if they didn't, I would have lost one of my favorite books. My dad and I had plans to go ice fishing, just him and I, something we've done since I was 7. Well, he brought Jane and Mandy along. All they did was complain. It's too cold. Fish are gross. This is boring. So we left early. He said, sometimes you have to compromise. When I got home, I was mad. My mom was annoyed and called him, and they argued, and he talked to me and repeated his compromising crap. I was supposed to go back to his place a few days later, but decided I didn't want to go. I never even spent time with just him anymore, so what's the point in going there? I told my mom, and she said it was my choice. So we told him. He said, I'm just used to being an only child, and I can't be spoiled my whole life, and I can't run away whenever there's a problem. Well, since then, his family is trying to get me to go back too. Am I the jerk for not wanting to visit my dad anymore? Edit. Some people have said to go to family counseling. He won't do that. He put me in therapy a few years back because I wasn't doing my homework. Seriously, that's the reason. Then when my therapist started calling him out on his parenting, he didn't want to go anymore, and my mom had to take me. My therapist even called him to try to talk to him, and my dad ignored it. Not the jerk. Your dad is failing you as a parent. Go back, with your mom waiting, and pack up every important item you have at your dad's so that Mandy can't get her grubby little hands on your stuff. OP. That's what my mom wants to do too. Right now, he's holding my Switch and saying I'll only get it back when I come over to talk things out. He didn't buy it either. I did. Your father is displaying absolutely disgusting behavior. I'm so sorry for you. You shouldn't have to deal with this. Would you be open to going over to talk? To make it seem like you're cooperating so you can get your stuff back. Like, go over, talk, Get the switch back and suddenly pack any other important items that he could hold over you. Then get your mom to pick you up. OP. Haha, I'm sure he'd include Jane and Mandy in that talk. Similar stuff has happened before this. He blames me because my cousins don't like Mandy. Because I don't like her, they won't either. He had talks with me before with them literally right there. I can't tell him that I don't want them around when they're right there. That's kinda rude. If I were you, I'd insist that if they're present, your mom is too. You need a grown advocate who calls out adults on their BS so that your perspective isn't trampled over as just being a difficult teen. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her dad? Please let us know. Dad sounds like a sorry excuse for a father. He doesn't even deserve to have his daughter with the way he's treating her. Want it cheaper or not at all? Fine, have it your way. 2 years ago, I took 2 extremely expensive, the examination fee is very high, internationally recognized exams, and also spent tons on buying preparation books for them. I tried to buy these books secondhand from a website, but didn't find any buyers who were selling for a reasonable price. I might as well have bought new ones for the same price, and so I did. These books are priced insanely because of how important and expensive the exams are. Now, I didn't use these books much as they were very extensive and the exams were not really that difficult. After I cleared the exams, I wanted to sell my books as they were brand new, expensive, and I remembered how I was not able to procure these books secondhand for a reasonable price as a broke student earlier and wanted to help out someone else in the same position. So I put them up for sale at 40% of their original price. There were not many buyers as it was not the time of the year people give those exams. But I found one guy, let's call him Stingy B, who kept haggling incessantly and wanted an even lower price for the books. I brought it down to 25 to 30%, but he was still not satisfied. Kept telling me how it wasn't the right price and I would find no buyers for such an exorbitant price. I was not even worried about the price, honestly. I just wanted the books to be used by someone else rather than be recycled or lie around my house for eternity, unread and unused. He told me to go find another buyer if I could for that price, and I seriously began considering just giving it to him for whatever he wanted. Luckily, a few days later, I found a buyer who agreed to buy the books for only 35% of the original price, and I immediately sealed the deal. There was minimal bargaining, and the girl was really nice and thankful. Stingy B now texts me and asks if I came to my senses and would like to give him the books for almost free, and I inform him that I found another buyer and have sealed the deal at 35%. He then starts pleading with me and begging me to consider, and how he will really need those books and how they're so expensive in the market. Yeah, no duh. Says that he will pay 30% the price. I told him I'm already getting more than that for them and have given my word. He keeps begging me to reconsider and matches the price I was getting. Stingy B didn't even try to beat the price or give me any incentive to go back on my word to the other girl. I simply told him I would let him know if anything changed and removed my sale ad on the website. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my brother-in-law for babysitting my daughter? I, 34 years old, have a 5-year-old daughter. My wife has passed on, and my in-laws are my only supporters. Some days ago, I had an appointment with the dentist, and the babysitter who was supposed to watch my daughter called and canceled. I didn't know what to do, so I called my brother-in-law asking if he was willing to watch his niece till I get back from the appointment. He said he wasn't sure since he had a couple of tutoring sessions to get done. I told him to skip and drop my daughter off at his apartment, then left. When I came back to pick her up in the evening, brother-in-law asked me to pay him for watching my daughter for 4 hours. I was taken aback and asked if he was serious. He reminded me that he had 2 tutoring sessions that he had to cancel last minute, and since I pushed him to stay with my daughter and watch her, then I need to pay him. I refused and said he was being somewhat greedy and an opportunist to even think sitting his niece would grant him easy money. He said it wasn't easy money, but time wasted in his very busy schedule. We had an argument and I left with my daughter. He called my in-laws who said that he was in the right and I should have paid him for his time and appreciated his efforts. I told them I didn't expect him to ask for money, but they said it's what I do with babysitters. Well, yes, but he's family, and last thing I expect from him is to ask for money for staying with his niece. Besides that, I had an emergency and couldn't miss the appointment knowing how hard it is to get another one. He's still insisting on being paid and I keep refusing. At this rate, I think he's being ridiculous, but I don't know. It all seems to be a misunderstanding. Say I did pay him, This would set the precedence for him to keep expecting money every time. Am I the jerk for not paying him? I forced my brother-in-law to cancel 2 tutoring sessions, losing him money to make him watch my kid. Then, instead of offering to cover the money he lost, I refused because family equals free labor. Even when you inconvenience them, fixed it for you. You're the jerk. If I were him, I'd never sit for you again. You forgot to add, my babysitter who I was going to pay canceled. OP, you're the jerk in a way you will regret. Now your brother-in-law won't be available as a backup in emergencies in the future, and you will be all out of luck. You're the jerk. He said he couldn't watch her. You dumped her on him anyway. He had to cancel paid work. He's not trying to profit from you. He's trying to recoup his losses. Accusing the brother-in-law of being greedy and an opportunist when this man is out here trying to force other people to miss out on work and provide him with free labor? Yikes. You're the jerk. Arranging priorities. Read a story that reminded me of this instance. I'd been with my team for a number of years at this point, so I knew how to manage my workflow and priorities to keep our customers happy. We had one annoying customer, though, who would constantly pressure us to give them top priority at all times, even though their orders rarely warranted it. Enter our new manager, Portia. Portia had the bad habit of listening to everybody but my team. If someone outside the team, like a customer, a different team, or manager of a different department asked Portia to change how our team worked, Portia would immediately agree to it, without considering the impact it would have on our workflow. Naturally, when an annoying customer asked Portia to make their orders top priority, Portia agreed. We protested, Portia ignored us, and annoying customers' orders were made top priority, even when they didn't need to be. Portia spent a few weeks constantly reminding us that annoying customer had top priority now, while we scrambled to adjust to our new workflow. Annoying customer gave us a lot of grunt work to do, and now that their grunt work was now top priority, all other customers' top priority work was being delayed. All this without a significant improvement on the annoying customers' orders due to the volumes involved. A few weeks more, and our other customers are becoming upset over the delays, and we can't tell them why. Portia comes by my desk with an order from one of our unhappy customers and tells me, "This order is top priority." And I can't help but snark, "I thought annoying customers' orders were top priority." Totally missing my sarcasm, she pompous proclaims, "All the orders are top priority," as if to encourage me to give my job 110%. I smirk. "Everything's top priority? You got it, boss." Why a smirk? Because when everything has the same top priority, then nothing has top priority, and my team happily goes back to properly managing our workflow and priorities again. The other customers stop complaining about delays, and annoying customer continues to insist they get top priority for all their orders, because of course they do. But we can go back to ignoring their unreasonable request. You want to report me to the police? I can do the same. This took place in Germany, relevant because of laws regarding taxes. A few weeks ago, my boyfriend and I were on our way home from an appointment and were quite hungry. We knew that about 10 friends would come to visit us this evening, so we decided to pick up some pizza for everyone on our way home. I quickly Googled a nice pizza place and ordered 10 pizzas and 3 salads. Guy on the phone said it'll be ready in 10 minutes, which was perfect given it would take us roughly 15 to 20 minutes to drive there. We arrived and I went inside when the guy behind the counter says he has no order under my name. I checked my phone and realized I called a pizza place with the same name in a town 5 hours away. I asked the guy behind the counter if it's possible to make my order, and he tells me it would take 15 minutes, so I went to wait outside. I was just about to call the other pizza place I wrongfully ordered at when my phone already rang. Lo and behold, it was the owner of the other pizza place, and he was furious. Asked where I was. It was now 25 minutes after I initially ordered, and if I'm going to pick up my order anytime soon. I explained my mistake, that I ordered at the wrong restaurant. I said that I will pay for the pizzas he prepared, given it was my stupid fault I called the wrong restaurant, if he can send me an invoice. As soon as I hang up the phone, our order, at the place we were, was ready and we drive home. Problem is, on our way home from there you have no signal. It's through dense forest with no phone service available and takes about 25 minutes. By the time I got signal again, the guy had sent me a bank account number and a price. This is when things started to seem off. I paid about €100 for 10 pizzas and 3 salads only 30 minutes earlier. the exact same order I placed at the wrong pizza place, but the guy from the wrong pizza place only wanted 36 euros for 10 pizzas and 3 salads. Additionally to this message, I also got 5 messages threatening me to call the police if I don't pay. Remember, I had no signal on the way home and planned to do it ASAP when I got home. He also didn't do a legit invoice, so I went on the pizza place's website and checked if this is the restaurant's bank account number. In Germany, every business needs his own tax identification number and bank account number, and it has to be accessible by the public. If a business gets paid money for their services and doesn't properly declare it, they can get fined a huge amount of money for it. Not to my surprise, he gave me his private bank account number because he wanted to pocket the money for himself and to not pay taxes for it. I messaged him back saying I will pay if he gives me the right bank account number and a legit invoice for it. Cue him getting furious and calling the police saying that I'm not paying him. They call to question me and I tell them he's trying to commit fraud. Long story short, I paid the price for my order to the right bank account and the pizza place was fined so much they went bankrupt because after my report, they found at least a dozen other charges against him. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law that she will never see my kid? Not really my mother-in-law, but girlfriend's mom seems like a mouthful. My girlfriend, Ella, and I have been together for almost 4 years now, and we are expecting our first child later on this year. Ella is 5 months pregnant. As much as I love Ella, I cannot stand her family, especially her mother. From the stories I've heard and from my own experiences with her mother seems to be an extremely disrespectful person. Because of her attitude, Ella has significantly cut contact with most of her family. We also didn't really tell them that we were pregnant. They found out through Ella's cousin. Upon hearing about Ella's pregnancy, Ella's mom has been pestering us about inviting us to dinner to congratulate and celebrate our growing family. It's a nice gesture, but I was hesitant to accept because of the way that she and the rest of Ella's family usually act. After almost a month of ignoring the invitation, Ella convinced me to take her up on it. The dinner was held at this very expensive, very fancy, fine dining restaurant. At first, to my shock, the dinner was going well. Ella's mom apologized for her past behavior and stated that she wanted to be a good grandmother moving forward. Her sister also offered support in the form of babysitting, old baby clothes, etc. The conversation was friendly, and I was very surprised to not hear anything insulting from Ella's mom directed at Ella. When Ella stepped out to use the washroom, Ella's sister made a comment about her supposed weight gain and offered me diet plans and an exercise regimen to prevent her from getting too big. Her mom also pitched in about Ella's greedy eating habits. Just to be clear, my girlfriend isn't big. She's very tall and lanky, and even if she was big, their comments would still be unacceptable. Ella's mom and sister also asked me to not tell Ella about our conversation because she's apparently too sensitive. At this point, I wanted to leave. Once Ella came back, I announced that I wanted to leave the dinner early. Her family was surprised and asked me why, and I responded that I didn't see them fit to see my kid and I wouldn't want to see them ever again. I was probably very impolite, but in the moment I didn't care. Her mom was very upset, almost yelling in the restaurant about how I couldn't leave without paying their bill, as I was the man of the table, and how I couldn't make husband's demands as a boyfriend. I can't forbid the grandmother from seeing her grandchild because I'm not a true family. Again, I didn't care and I left with Ella. I later found out that Ella's mom's card declined and they were forced to phone a friend to bring some money. Very embarrassing. Ella thinks that I could have been less harsh because now her sister is spreading rumors about her to the family. Not the jerk. So wait, Ella's family invited you to a swanky dinner, expected you to cover everyone's tab, and had zero backup plan for if you declined? Never mind the insulting Ella behind her back drama. That alone makes them the jerks. Continue to ignore them and focus on getting Ella on the same page with you about what role they're going to be allowed to have in the kid's life and how to draw boundaries, because it doesn't sound like she fully realizes how messed up all of this is yet. OP. I think the saddest part about this whole situation is that Ella didn't really react after I told her what they had said about her. Her reaction was more like, "Oh, they're doing this again," as if she's heard it a million times before. All this to say, I think deep down she understands how messed up the situation is. I think she just has a hope that they would change. She's desensitized to it because she's used to this. I mean this in the nicest way. Your girlfriend needs therapy. It's going to help her understand everything a lot more if she gets an unbiased professional opinion, because the way her family acts is disgusting and not normal, and she needs to know that. I'm glad you had her back. Good on you, OP. Not the jerk. So she invites you to dinner and then expects you to pay? That's rich. Sounds like Karma also joined that dinner party. Am I the jerk for telling my nephew the truth and not giving my brother a chance? My nephew, Jamie, 17, male, is in trouble with his dad, my brother, and stepmom because he locked himself in his room and left his stepsisters, who are 13 and 9, alone even though he was supposed to watch them. He's currently not allowed to drive his car unless his sister wants to go somewhere, hang out with friends, and my brother even took some of his things, clothes and jewelry that his mother made. Background info. Jamie's mother used to design clothes and make jewelry ever since she was a teenager. It wasn't her job, but a hobby, and she honestly made some pretty neat stuff. After she passed, Jamie took the things and even wears the jewelry. He wears some clothes, but most of them are for women and girls, and he's too tall for them. When I asked my brother why in the world he took those things, he said his wife said it'll make him understand consequences better or something, I don't know. He also said he'd give the things back after his punishment was over. Anyways, my brother told me that his wife gave away most of the things to her friends and family. Some things were even completely ruined by the girls. I honestly freaked out. Jamie adores his mother's creations, and now he has nothing but maybe 2 rings and a necklace. Almost 20 years worth of things gone in a month. I was horrified and heartbroken. My brother basically called me because Jamie has been asking for the things back and he doesn't know what to do. I told him to buzz off and texted Jamie immediately and informed him of what had happened. He was upset but thankful. About 2 hours later, my brother showed up at my house. He was in tears and asked me why I did that. He said I didn't even warn him, and now he's afraid that he won't be able to fix his relationship with Jamie. He called me for help to make things right, and I didn't even give him a chance to fix things. I told him that Jamie not talking to him was his own fault, and he said that wasn't the point. He insists I should have helped him get the things back. He called me a jerk and said that he hoped I was happy now. I don't think I'm the jerk, because if these were my things, I'd want to know. Jamie even said he appreciated it. And again, my brother honestly deserves this, but I do see his point, and his wife and our parents think I'm in the wrong as well. Edit. My brother / his wife are obviously jerks for the whole situation. Nobody's questioning that. I'm asking if I'm the jerk for telling my nephew what happened without giving my brother a chance to explain or fix things. Not the jerk. First of all, Jamie is 17, not 7. He absolutely has the right to know what's going on. Second, I absolutely hate the idea of parents forcing their older kids to care for the younger ones. Take care of your own darn things. Giving away his late mother's stuff is evil stepmother in the movie stuff. That's not right. If it were me, I'd offer to hold on to what's left until he moves out so this doesn't happen again. Your brother needs to accept the consequences of his own behavior. If he believed his kid had to do that to that extent, he has no right to say he shouldn't have had to deal with them. OP. No, because I had to take a few minutes to process everything when my brother told me what happened, because it's honestly such a cruel thing to do. I thought he was joking at first, because what the heck? Who does that stuff? I still haven't gotten a clear answer as to why she just gave those things away. Tell your brother clearly that this isn't your fault his relationship with Jamie has soured. It's his own fault and his wife's fault, and he cannot fix the damage he did. They can only hope to earn the right to make up for it. Jamie may be no contact in less than a year. My pregnant ex, Karen, demands money from me. My ex, 25 female, and I, 27 male, were together about 6 months, but during that time, we were free to see other people. Things weren't working out, so we broke up. Over a month after that, she finds out she's pregnant and tells me the baby is mine. But I already knew she was seeing other guys, so it was also possible the baby isn't. She got mad that I was having my doubts, but I said if we got a paternity test and it showed I'm the dad, then yeah, I'll 100% be involved. My ex didn't want that, and she'd rather wait until after the baby is born to get a test done, so I said that's fine, it's her choice, but I won't get myself involved unless I know the baby is mine. Like I already know, I could be set up for child support if I start helping out now, and then later it's revealed I'm not the father. I live in the US and have heard this stuff happens a lot. I'd rather not even risk it, you know? She's about 8 months now, and I have started saving up money, reading up some books, making shopping cart lists of baby clothes and furniture to buy in case I am the father. So it's not like I'm not preparing for this at all. So right now, money is tight with her since I know she's only working part-time. She doesn't have the money for a baby bassinet or clothes because she practically lives paycheck to paycheck. She started asking to let her borrow money for baby stuff, but I've told her no. As far as I know, she doesn't have other family she's close to, and friends are the same as her with money. But I already said I'll start giving her money and helping out once I know her son is mine. Otherwise, I'd rather not get involved. I've even told her to reach out to the other guys who could also be the dads, but she said one is even more broke and the other she hasn't been able to contact. So for right now, seems like I'm the only one actually able to offer financial support. We have a couple mutual friends, and I'm getting crap from them because they know I have the money to help out. She could be the mom of my kid, so the least I could do is provide. They say they would if they had the money. Since I do have the means and this baby could be mine, I should already be helping. They have a point. The baby could be mine, and I'll be happy to help out once I know he is in fact mine. But everyone else is seeing it as I'm being too cold and inconsiderate. I don't think I am, but want to know what others believe. Am I the jerk? My girlfriend is furious that I gave money to my mother instead of paying for her college debt. I'm 26, male, and my mom, who's 54, has always been insecure about her body. My mom isn't ugly by any means. She's beautiful in my eyes. But my mom recently had told me that she was considering plastic surgery for a long time, but couldn't because she had to prioritize her money on raising me. She didn't ask me for money or anything. I asked her if she was sure about it. She said she was. So I got a full-ride scholarship to college, and I'm pretty financially stable myself, so I thought it would be nice if I paid for it. My mom said it wasn't necessary, but I insisted because I wanted to do something nice for her. My mom got implants and a facelift, and I paid for it fully. She said she was really grateful and thanked me. Honestly, I was really happy for her because it gave her self-esteem a boost that she needed. She was very happy as well, and everything was fine. But when my girlfriend got to know about this, she was upset. She told me I should have let her know before I decided to do anything. She told me she couldn't believe I wasted my money on something like that. She said it was unfair and that I could have used it to help her pay off her college debt, which would have been more useful. I tried to explain it to her, but she didn't listen and called my mom fake and told me she needs to get over her insecurities. Most of my friends also took my girlfriend's side on this one and said that helping my girlfriend pay off her college debt is a lot more important than my mom's plastic surgery and are calling me a jerk. I'm not sure if I did something wrong here. I don't see what was wrong with paying for my mom's plastic surgery. It helped her get over her insecurities, and I'm really happy about it because she's feeling better now. So my question is, am I the jerk for this? Thanks. Edit. For answers to some common questions, my girlfriend and I have been together for over a year now, and we decided to move in together a few months ago. Also, I don't share a joint account with my girlfriend or anything, but she thinks I should have helped her pay off her college debt because I am financially doing better than she is. Not the jerk, but your girlfriend sure is. She's upset she didn't get a fat paycheck from you instead of you doing something nice for your mom. Right? That's some next level entitlement on the girlfriend's part. The fact that the friends agree is also problematic. Not the jerk. Unless you're married and this was money from a joint bank account, your girlfriend has absolutely no claim to it. You can use it to help your mom, and you don't owe your girlfriend any explanation and certainly not consultation. ETA. And your girlfriend expecting you to pay her student loan is a major red flag. Your mom probably paid a bunch while raising you. Your girlfriend expects to collect and have you pay her loans just because she's pretty? Major red flags. Everyone sucks here. Financial details are vague. I'd like to assume you're so well off at 26 that this doesn't affect you financially at all, but I doubt it. Considering your financial vagueness, if you're in what you would consider a serious relationship, you discuss big financial moves before making them. It wasn't your girlfriend's main talking point, but you can't trust a partner that makes rash decisions with money if you're planning goals together for the future. Your girlfriend is entitled to say that your money could have gone towards her loans. She took out the loans. You've been together a year. You're not married. Even once you are married, that doesn't mean all your savings go towards her debt. You are not obligated to that, and I would have a sit-down discussion about how she plans on handling her loans down the line. She's right that your mom is insecure though. It's a waste of money for temporary, shallow happiness. In a few years, she'll cower against that insecurity yet again until she faces it and undoes the years of beauty product brainwashing. You're the jerk. Those surgeries you mentioned are expensive, like really expensive, and you and your girlfriend live together. Sure, you each have your own separate accounts, but are you planning on getting a nice place with her, starting a family one day, etc.? If you are, then money becomes more of a joint thing. Maybe she's just upset because she feels like you're jeopardizing your future together for your mom's surgery. If you do stay with this girl, I'd say get married, but I know not everyone believes in marriage. Then you have to recognize that partners should be a team, and you should consult your significant other before spending $20,000 to $30,000. I'd be upset too. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Pro tip: when someone gets upset with you for not paying their student loans, break up with them. Entitled mother belittles me for not allowing her kid to sit in on a university class. I'm a musical theater student at a pretty prestigious performing arts university, and to help pay for my course, alongside that I work part-time in retail. We have a lot to learn, and I normally work more than is actually required of me. And so, after asking permission from my manager, I take a folder with me to work. This contains scripts, song lyrics, etc., so I can study them when there's a lull in customers. I put the name of my school on the front of my folder as well as mine, because whilst I leave it on public transport, people probably won't know my name. They probably will know that of the schools and could come and drop it off. Now we're done with that. I can move on to the actual story. I was working the registers today, and it was reasonably quiet for the first half of my shift, so I had my folder out to work on a script. Normally, the folder is in my bag, but when I catch a break, I take it out. However, I was called into the stockroom, and as it was quiet, I just tucked my folder away and went to see what was up. I was only away for a few minutes, but like it often does, those few minutes, everyone decided they wanted to pay. Our location is understaffed at the best of times, so nobody could take my place, and if they could, I knew I wouldn't be away for long, so I left my register unguarded. I returned to the discovery that my precious folder was nowhere to be seen. I panic, and whilst trying to serve the customer, who has probably been waiting long enough, I look around and down the line to see if I can spot anyone who looks like they have it. Enter entitled mom and her similarly entitled kid. She looks nice enough from first glance, standing near the back of the line, probably glad that her kid, who couldn't have been over 12, was finally quiet, even if it was with the use of my folder of scripts. There was nothing in there that could have been that harmful, so I decided not to make a scene and instead wait for her to be leaving and grab her on the way out. My plan works well, and as she's about to leave, I pull her and the kid to the side. I asked the kid politely if they could give it back to me, as I need it for school. They refused. Entitled mom got mad that I had even requested to have my own property back, saying that if it was that important, I shouldn't have left it out for anyone to take. My patience is already wearing thin with this lady. I tell her that it's common etiquette not to take things from a place you shouldn't even be touching. She argues back that her kid doesn't even know better. I'm done at this point and tell her, using one of my last threads of calmness, to give me back my folder. I've been in retail for 6 months now. I know how entitled some people can be, but I was not expecting what came out of this lady's mouth next. Fine, but we'll need compensation. You go to a good school, don't you? Well then, my kid is a budding actor. Let them sit in on a class to gain some skills. Okay, this is where my patience was snapping. I tell her, in simple, slow words, that I do not own the course, I only attend it. I can't control who gets to see what goes on, and if I did, I would definitely not let her kid in, seeing how they treat other people's belongings. She scoffed, started to leave, while saying something about me clearly not caring enough about my future to even consider it, as her darling was going to be a star. How could I be so rude? And then I properly snapped, suddenly coming up with my last idea to save my folder. I mean, I only don't want them to have it because there's some stuff in there that's not really for kids, you know? The look that passed onto her face was priceless as she snatched the folder from the kid, threw it at my feet, and stormed out, muttering something about unacceptable behavior, and of course, the dreaded, I will be speaking to your manager. All in all, it was an experience I don't think I'll forget for a while. Pro tip: whenever a parent with their child says, they're just a kid, they don't know any better, you look at them and say, yes, but you do, right? Am I the jerk for getting upset with my best friend's son for giving my son cake? My son is 8 years old and recently attended his friend's 8th birthday party. This friend is my best friend's son. I don't let my son have any junk food at all, and usually he brings his own snacks. For this incident, it was carrot sticks and ranch, two events that have a lot of sugary foods. My best friend bakes a lot and made a special chocolate cake for her son's birthday. When it comes to my son, I don't let him have cake. This is a personal preference for his health, not for any allergy reasons, and he is not diabetic or gluten-free. My son knows he isn't allowed to have cake because of the additives. When he told his best friend at this party, his friend apparently got upset and told him it was good cake, not bad like I say, because his mom made it, and it was his birthday cake. My son ate cake, got a sugar rush, and crashed, making him cranky for the rest of the day after we left the party. I told my friend she needs to have some kind of consequences for her son to teach him not to peer pressure other kids into eating things they're not allowed to have. She said because it wasn't an issue of allergies or health, that she's sorry my son was cranky, but she won't be punishing her son or talking to him about it on his birthday. She also says she'll just watch him more closely and make sure that her husband does in the future, as well as have a chat with him on another day about respecting food habits. I love my friend, but historically, her and her husband have always said yes to their son and not given him any consequences for anything. Both of us were present at the party and did not see them sharing the cake. They were outside eating it in the backyard with their fathers and some other parents supervising while we cleaned up. So it's not an issue of anyone going behind anyone's back, just teaching kids boundaries and respect. I let my son stay for the rest of the party and be with his friend, so it's not like I ruined the day. Am I the jerk for being upset with my friend's son and the fact that she won't punish him for pressuring my son into eating cake? God forbid your son experience a moment of joy and celebration. You're the jerk. For your information, sugar rushes are a myth. They've been debunked many times by scientists and medical professionals. That your son was irritable for the rest of the day was likely because, having had fun at a friend's birthday party, you crapped all over his enjoyment of the party with your ridiculous attitude and over-the-top indictment of the whole party. I can only imagine your son's embarrassment at you having the utter gall to demand consequences for a kid on his birthday who shared his cake with your son, who, by your own admission, has no health issues that would be affected by said cake. It wasn't the cake that made your son irritable, it was you. I seriously doubt that you being declared the jerk in this will in any way soften your views on such things. It's perfectly fine to want to make sure that your kid eats nutritiously. You also shouldn't be a jerk about it. In fact, the more you try to exert such iron control over it, the higher the likelihood you will drive your son straight into an eating disorder. There isn't a doubt in my mind that your son has a stash of candy at various places because of you. Be fair, he might not have them yet. 8-year-olds are often very obedient. Give him 5 to 8 years though, and that kid is going to be an absolute sugar fiend. Yup, ask any kid that was denied sugar by parents. What did they do immediately after being in charge of their own food? Pick all the marshmallows out of the sugar cereal they weren't even allowed to eat before, and just eat them like I did. My older sister was given whatever cereal she wanted growing up and hates sugar cereal now. She is much older. This kid will rebel when they are able, and later might even cut mom off entirely if this is not the only area of control she's crazy about, and I'm willing to bet it's not. OP, you're the jerk. Loosen up or lose your kid at 18. Absolutely. There's no difference than the kids who grow up with super strict parents and then go absolutely wild when they go to college and get a little taste of freedom. OP is setting up her kid to blow right through the freshman 15 in his first term, let alone year of college. I can personally confirm this. As soon as I moved out, I started to eat everything sugary and fatty that I wasn't allowed when I was younger, which, looking at it now, was detrimental to both my physical and mental health. So yeah, OP, you're the jerk. Stop this now before you lose your son. Why are you so worried about one piece of cake? It's a homemade cake, so no additives. And there are no other health reasons for eating a little cake for affect his health. Yes, eating a lot of sugar and fat leads to health issues, but this was a single piece of cake on his friend's special day. I understand your concerns about nutritious food, but it seems like you're being a jerk about it. Here's the thing. It was never about being able to eat cake. It was so much more than that. Having all your food controlled to the slightest bit, missed out on a central part of birthday fun every year, and now being stripped of that joy with normalcy the moment he let himself enjoy it, which is exactly why you did ruin the day for him. You know what? This is the most likely path to eating disorders you could have chosen for your son. From personal experience, making any food 100% off limits will only lead to an unhealthy relationship with that food and food in general. Even now, it's more than likely he's going behind your back for sweets. He's 8. He isn't old enough to make all decisions for himself, sure, but at least give him some agency. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I'm so glad my parents weren't health nuts. Won't honor the contract? Fine. Hope you like hot pink duct tape. Many years ago, I was an elected union president at a Fortune 500 company, but I was only in charge of one contracted group. As such, the bargaining power of the main company was much higher than my own, but even they couldn't intervene too much. My group's contract switched from Company A to Company B in 2012, but the contract remained unchanged. Company B inherited all of the contract requirements of Company A and agreed to meet them, but opted to fight me on several minor clauses when it came down to it. Most were solved without much conflict, but the major sticking point was in regard to uniforms. Our contract ensured we were given an allowance to pay for new uniforms and vouchers for steel-toe boots every year. When it came time for our new vouchers, they refused, citing that they'd given us a slight raise which could offset the cost of boots. I informed them that a cost of living raise didn't void the portion of the contract requiring them to provide vouchers for shoes, to which they responded they just hadn't figured out how to provide vouchers yet. After assurances they would provide the vouchers as soon as they could work it out, I dropped the issue. Unsurprisingly, months later, they still hadn't provided vouchers for replacement shoes. It should be noted that this was a very large campus and many of us walked several miles a day in these shoes, and the shoes were caked with chemicals and dirt and started to look pretty vile within a year. We had to wear the same work boots in office areas, and we had started to get complaints. I decided to lean into this. This is where malicious compliance begins. No new shoes? Fine, I'll rig them up to last longer. I went out and bought several rolls of the flashiest and most obnoxious duct tape I could find. I began to repair holes in my shoes with duct tape and extra fabric to the point that my hot pink shoes became easily recognizable. The safety team for the main company was so amused, they gifted me hot pink safety glasses and gloves to match. I also lent out my gaudy duct tape collection to any employee needing to upgrade their shoes. Suddenly, the complaints about our dirty shoes were replaced by complaints about obviously duct-taped shoes. Whenever we were asked, we'd tell both union and non-union coworkers that it was a small protest against the refusal to honor the shoe vouchers in the contract. The next year rolls around and still no shoe vouchers, but suddenly our uniform allowances were increased to $150 to allow for new steel-toed shoes to be purchased. After speaking to the union members, I agreed to allow that in place of the vouchers. I kept my duct tape collection permanently on display as a threat and would use it anytime safety equipment wasn't being replaced and required repair. Am I the jerk for refusing guardianship and questioning my dad's decision to have a kid at his age? I'm 37, female, married to a 37-year-old male. We have 4 kids ranging from ages 4 to 12. My dad is 65, male, and on his 3rd marriage. My mom is the same age as him. His second wife is 50, and his current wife is 40. He had 2 kids during his second marriage, who are 17 and 15, and now he has a 6-month-old. When the 15-year-old was born, my husband, fiancé at the time, and I were named in my dad's will that we would raise my siblings if the worst happened and they were orphaned. We were fine with this, and we are still fine with it. There is no doubt that if this scenario were to come to pass tomorrow, it would be extremely hard, but my siblings are now teenagers, so there would, at the very least, not be much physical hands-on care. Plus, the responsibility would only last, technically, for 3 more years. This is obviously not the case with a baby. If the worst happened tomorrow, we'd be starting all over. My husband and I are agreed on no more babies and have taken the necessary measures to ensure that. And with our youngest finally fully trained, we are thrilled with the diaperless future ahead of us. So my dad told us a few weeks ago that he updated his will and naturally named us as guardians for the baby. I said he'd better change it then, because absolutely not, and outlined the reasons above. Dad didn't take it well. He said it was really unfair that I was favoring some siblings over others. I reiterated that was not the case, though I do of course have a much closer relationship with my teen siblings than with my baby sibling. He's cute and all, but I've got my own kids to focus on. My personal situation is very different than it was 15 years ago. I told my dad to ask people on his wife's side of the family, and he doesn't want to because he doesn't feel they'd respect his wishes for raising the kid the way I would. I said I'm sorry, but I'm just not able to make this level of commitment. Then Dad started complaining that it's not fair. Due to his age, he really needs the assurance that his kid will be in good hands. So I quipped back. Due to his age, he shouldn't have gone and had another kid. Dad responded that was a nasty thing to say and hung up, and things have been strained ever since. I guess I could have been a little nicer, but I do stand by what I said. I'm not in a position to commit to this, and frankly, having a baby at his age was dumb, and he should have thought it through better. Am I the jerk for my refusal to be a guardian and for sharing my thoughts on my dad's choices? Not the jerk. And your dad is crazy to assume you'd be willing or able to take on that kind of responsibility in your mid-30s with a house full of your own kids. I would really like to know if his wife was consulted on this decision at all. Like, she's got to know the odds are that she's outliving him, or he will leave her in 10 years for a younger model if he lives. So does she actually want her stepdaughter to raise her baby if her husband passes first and she passes on later? Does she agree about how her family raises kids? I was actually wondering, given the track record, will he be on wife number 4 in about 10 years, and will she be 30 at this time? If so, he will probably try and have another baby. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her dad? Please let us know. Old dudes getting with women who are young enough to be their daughters always gives me the heebie-jeebies. You write poor code and never fix anything. Background. I used to work for an IT services company working on a central government contract. We would develop the code, unit test it, and then hand it off to a dedicated test team who would test and sign off on the code before going to production. Once in production, the jobs would be monitored and responded to by a dedicated support team. This support team were all ex-government employees transitioned to the services company as part of the contract. They never developed any code themselves, but were happy to point fingers at anyone else to make themselves feel superior. The production system was massive and made up of many moving parts. Code releases were also based on dates pulled out of thin air, rather than being based on requirements or development times. As such, defects were inevitable. Defects were graded 1 through 5, with 1 being critical and 5 only being addressed if 1 through 4 were all gone. Category 5 was things like, clicking this button takes 5 seconds instead of 3. This meant that anything with a 5 was never looked at. The support team monitored production jobs out of hours. If a job failed, the first responder would be called. This meant a $50 call-out fee for him. He would then call someone else on his team to address the issue. This meant a $50 call-out fee for him also. A particular job had an issue where the underlying requirement was not clear and it would fail at 10 p.m. each day due to an unexpected value. The fix was to click restart and the job would recover itself and continue without any further failures. As this required no real intervention and didn't impact users, it was labeled with a 5. The support team liked this as it meant an extra $350 a week for the lead and $350 a week for the support guy, just for one of them to click a button at the same time each night. This had been happening for the previous 2 years, government, and netted them about $35,000 each in support payments so far. Malicious compliance. After a large release filled with incomplete requirements and unrealistic deadlines, we were called to a multi-team meeting to discuss the number of defects and how to reduce them. The support team leader took this opportunity to brown-nose leadership and tell everyone how it was all the development team's fault because we wrote poor code and never fixed anything, and how his team were carrying us and having to respond to regular out-of-hours outages. We were blindsided by this, and I was particularly annoyed because we were already under undue pressure and didn't need this Muppet making things worse. I knew about the 10 p.m. job and knew they were milking it, so I raised a new fake defect and labeled it as a Category 3 and linked it to roughly the same area as the Category 5 10 p.m. failure. I fixed the 10 p.m. failure code by basically editing an if statement so it would continue instead of failing. It took no more than 10 keystrokes. The new code was deployed, but I didn't tell the support team. The next day, I got a call from the team lead saying there was a problem with the 10 p.m. job as it didn't fail the night before, so must not have processed all of the data. He continued with, "We should test the code more thoroughly," when I stopped him mid-sentence and said, "Oh, that code. I noticed a problem when I was fixing something else, so I made a change to stop it from failing. I didn't want it to keep bothering you guys." He didn't know what to say, so I said goodbye and hung up. If he hadn't have been a Muppet, I would have let him keep his cash cow, but he chose poorly, and the cash cow vanished. Am I the jerk for itemizing my household bills and demanding my significant other pay his fair share now that his 3 teens have moved in with us? I, 33, female, have been with my boyfriend, 46, male, for almost 3 years. He moved in with me about 6 months after we started dating. Things were going quite well. He does not work as he is a disabled veteran and collects a pension. I work a decently paying job and make about $60,000 more per year than he does. He would give me a few $100s here and there towards food and bills when I would ask, and I paid my mortgage and the rest of the bills. He was paying about $1,200 a month in child support for his 3 girls who lived with their mom, now 15, 17, and 18. I have 2 girls, who are now 10 and 13, who live with me 60% of the time and live with their dad the rest of the time. About 6 months ago, his girl's mom decided she couldn't take care of them any longer. She had ruined their family home. No running water, septic was destroyed, holes in the floor, 5-gallon buckets used as toilets, etc. It was awful to discover, and at no point when the girls visited did they share the info with me. I don't know how he didn't know what was happening, but he says he didn't. At that time, the courts decided the girls needed to live with their father, who lives with me, obviously. I knew this would be a tough transition for all involved, so for the last 6 months, I've continued to pay for everything, and he's given me $500 a month towards their support. Food, bills, etc. Their mother has contributed nothing. Upon discovering that I was getting a bit behind with finances, I itemized my spending and determined that my costs have gone up about $1,700 a month since they came here, just regular bills, which doesn't include Christmas presents, clothes, salon trips, vacations, going out to eat, etc. that I have also paid for. I showed this to my boyfriend and asked that he started paying me an amount closer to the cost of the spending, at least the $1,200 he was paying in child support before they came here. He became very angry, accusing me of being money hungry and insinuating he was taking advantage of me. He then told me he would give me $750 a month towards bills. I expressed that if he felt he could support 4 people for less than what I was asking him to contribute on his own, then he should do that. He says I should be okay because it's for our family. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. And what makes this feel worse is that I discovered my boyfriend's ex-wife also was dating a younger person with a good job, and that guy is now suing her for taking advantage of him. It almost hits too close to home, but I do love my boyfriend and his daughters, and I feel like he should contribute more to the support of his kids when I'm paying the bulk of our expenses. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You're being used. Cut off your financial support of your boyfriend and his kids. Stop buying the groceries, paying for their personal expenses, cell phones, car insurance, etc., and don't cover his or their debt. Your boyfriend needs to cover his and his kids' share of expenses for accommodations, utilities, groceries, and other shared household expenses. This means that he should pay at least half of rent and mortgage costs and 2/3 of utilities and groceries. You may need to stop buying their groceries if he won't pay you his share. You need to stop paying anything towards his or their luxuries. Don't pay for their spas, vacations, fast food, transportation, etc. If their parents won't pay, the kids can't have those luxuries. If your boyfriend wants to refuse to contribute, seriously reconsider having him live with you at all. Not the jerk for asking him to pay his fair share. You will be the jerk if you do not prioritize your own finances and the needs of your own kids. Every dollar he mooches from you is a dollar that isn't making your future and your kids' lives more secure. Love isn't enough. Am I the jerk for walking out over a chair? Okay, hear me out. For as long as I can remember in my family, almost any time I got up from my seat, someone would take it to either be funny or to claim it as if no one was using it. And as a teenager, it literally got to the point I brought my own folding chair so I could pick it up and carry it with me. If I left it where it was, someone would take it, then get mad when I wanted it back. As an example, on a holiday last year, I got up from my chair for a moment to help with something and came back to find a kid in it. And then the family berating me for wanting them to move. But I tell them that when a man owns and brings his own chair, they expect to be able to use it. I own a very nice folding chair that's comfortable and easily portable, and I pretty much use it at any family events because people are always scrambling for chairs. Well, the other day I went to a birthday party for my nephew, and like always, I brought my own chair. But at some point I had to use the bathroom. When I came back, my chair was gone, and everyone acted like they didn't know where it was. I said they had 1 minute to return it, or I was leaving. They laughed at first, but then realized I was serious as I started going for the door. Everybody told me to just calm down as it was just a joke. I said I don't care if they think I'm a stick in the mud. I wouldn't be bringing my own chair all the time if other people weren't always taking my seat when I get up. I don't think it's funny. I never did. My brother-in-law then pulled the chair out of where he had hidden it, and when I got it back, one of the legs was bent. I said it was not like this before, and how could he possibly have done this to a metal chair? He said he could fix it and tried to unbend it, but only made it worse. The chair is pretty much unusable now because the leg is warped and I don't want to risk putting weight on it. I told my brother-in-law he owes me $50 for the chair because that's what I paid for it new 2 years ago. He got mad and kept saying it was just a stupid chair. I said it was my stupid chair, and this wouldn't have happened if he wasn't so immature that he and everyone else had to mess with me for years about where I sit. Then I took my now messed up chair and walked out. My family has been blowing my phone up, saying that it's just a chair and to let it go, but I still want my brother to pay me back for it. Am I the jerk? They bully you for years, constantly conspire as a group to prevent you from sitting, hide and break your property, and insult and gaslight you when you attempt to set the smallest boundary. Am I missing anything? I would suggest not attending these get-togethers anymore. They can play musical chairs without you. Seriously, what do you actually get out of going to these things that is worth putting up with the bullying? Yes, it's not about a chair, it's about the bullying and disrespect. Not the jerk. Is your brother 12? Because this is the kind of BS my siblings and I used to do to our parents and each other when we were middle schoolers. Jokes are supposed to be funny. You have the patience of a saint, to be honest. I would have lost it at them and gone low contact or no contact a long time ago. I can't stand this type of juvenile behavior. Am I the jerk for making my husband get off his video game to take care of the baby? Our 9-month-old is teething and pretty fussy right now. I finally got her to sleep. I nurse her to sleep, so my husband couldn't help with that. He was playing an online game with voice, and I told him he needed to be more quiet because if he woke her up, he was taking care of her until she was ready to go back to sleep. If she wakes up, she wants to play for an hour or two before she'll settle back down. He said he wasn't being that loud, and to be fair, he was using a normal speaking voice, but I told him that she kept stirring and squirming. My rocking chair is in the living room where he has his PC. When she's fussy like this, she just needs to rock and cuddle for a while. If I put her down too early, she wakes up. He said he'd try to be quieter. He was using his headset, and it's pretty high-end, so it can easily pick up his voice. There wasn't an issue with him being heard in-game, but he kept forgetting to lower his voice, and the baby woke up. I waited for him to finish his mission, then I handed her to him and went into the bathroom with my laptop to play one of my games. He's mad and says I'm being a jerk because he wasn't being overly loud, and he wanted to get further in the game. But I warned him, when she's having a fussy night, we have to work around her. So, am I the jerk? I got my mom and her new husband a book about cheating for their anniversary. I'm 16, male, and I love my mom, who's 35. But when I was 10, she had an affair and left us. I visited her as often as I could, and she always seemed so happy when I was there, but I couldn't stand her new family, so I stopped visiting. Honestly, we rarely ever saw each other after, just for my birthday and events really. She wants us to be close, but I want nothing to do with her new husband, so I've kept my distance. Except on February 20th, my dad announced he'd be out on business till the 12th, and my grandparents are stuck visiting relatives in Italy, and so I really had nowhere to go, and my mom jumped at the chance to have me stay with her. And just my luck that my mom's anniversary with her husband was on Sunday. I haven't had a good time here at all, so all I do is stay in my room doing homework or go out with friends to avoid family activities, because it sucks seeing how lovey-dovey she is with her husband and how they seem like the perfect family with their daughters. The morning before her anniversary day, she came to my bed and tried to cuddle with me, like before she left us, but it made me angry, like we can't go back in time and pretend it's how it was. So I just pretended to be asleep and stayed curled up and frozen until she left. I started crying because of that, and I felt angry and snarky, and my mom majored in literature, so I got her a copy of Anna Karenina for her anniversary. That book's about a lady who leaves her husband and son for her lover. I've never read it, but I watched the movie with my girlfriend, and I hated it. The anniversary party was on Sunday. Everyone was having fun but me, and then people gave their gifts. I gave mine, and when my mom saw what it was, she seemed shocked, but just said thanks. The party ended like an hour after, but at night, when she was in her room, I heard her crying really loudly. So I kinda eavesdropped a little and heard her saying stuff about that book and me and her husband trying to calm her. The next day at breakfast, she left for work early before I woke up, and her husband straight up called me a jerk and other stuff for gifting them that. It's been a few days now, and my mom has barely talked to me. Honestly, I feel so wrong I made my mom cry, but but at the same time, I don't want to be here, and she knows that. So am I really the jerk? Edit. Thankfully, the mods have locked this, but to everyone who keeps DMing me, here's some facts to read before you do. I gave my mom the book to try and get it across to her that I hate being at her house and being around her family, and that it hurts me to be there because I sympathized with the son from the movie, not because I want a train to run over her. I do not want that to happen to my mom. I do not want my dad to get back together with my mom. He's happy with his fiancé. My dad has his reasons for not wanting me to go to therapy and is just being protective. Yes, I stopped visiting my mom because I hate her husband, and she had custody of me on weekends or breaks. She could have forced me to be with her, but since being with him or making him be with us whenever I did go to her was more important, she never tried anything beyond the bare minimum of going to big events. Definitely not the jerk. For one, Anna Karenina is a classic and a great gift. For another, if the shoe fits, not the jerk. Not the jerk. She wouldn't take it so hard or understand what you were implying if she didn't already feel that way. If the shoe fits is a perfect way to describe this whole thing. Also, OP, your mom didn't make a mistake when she cheated on your dad. She made a choice and stuck with it. Ideally, children shouldn't get hurt in their parents' drama, but of course we do. What your mom did was incredibly hurtful, and honestly, the issues you have with her are valid. Actions have consequences, and she doesn't like hers. Also, tell your stepdad he's a jerk as well. He doesn't need to fight for your mom. If she has such an issue with your well-thought-out gift, she can come to talk to you like an adult. But from where I'm standing, I doubt she will, because she thinks she did nothing wrong. I view OP's mom with a bit of sympathy, because she had OP at 19. That's pretty young, and in a way, I feel her for not having fully sorted out what makes her happy and eventually realizing her relationship didn't. Obviously, she could have gone about it a better way, but she was young, and frankly, there's no good way to break up as parents of a child that age. The destruction of what you view as your family is always going to suck, even if they weren't right for each other. I'm not sure what her new husband has done, besides cheat, to earn OP's hate, but given that these feelings extend to mom's entire new family, I have to think that it's at least in part purely projected dislike based on the breakup of OP's family and everything involved, which is valid, but it makes it harder for me to picture him as a villain here. If he called OP a jerk out of the blue, then that's jerk behavior on his part. But reading between the lines, I'm guessing that OP has made her distaste for him and OP's siblings, who OP doesn't even refer to as sisters, clear. I'd like to point out OP is a male. I think because of the gender difference between OP and his siblings, watching his mom play perfect family with 2 daughters instead of him is probably also adding to his disdain. OP's mom also doesn't seem to have custody of OP, even though she has other kids. It's not that she just broke her marriage, but also left OP in the midst of it for a fresh start. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their mom? Please let us know. When someone tries to get you fired, but you have a reverse card in store for them. This incident happened in March of 2021, in the middle of lockdown. It would probably be recognizable to people I work with. Hopefully they don't read this thread. It's a story about someone whose ambition was bigger than their ethics and the law, and it coming back to bite them. At the time, I was working as a manager in a mid-sized business. While I was there, I was assigned a new member to my team. I'll call her Evil. Evil was in her mid-20s and was pretty fresh out of college. She was the kind of person who could talk your ear off about all of her ideas and plans and what she was working on, but never really seemed to have anything to show for it. When I talked to her about clients complaining that she wasn't getting back to them, she would always have an excuse about how difficult they were, how snowed under she was, and how she had written an email but it must have gotten lost in spam, so on and so forth. Basically, never her fault. It got to the point where after one of our monthly meetings, I called her in and explained that if she couldn't get her tasks done, she needed to let us know so we could help delegate resources to make sure things weren't slipping through the cracks. I'll admit, I was pretty direct. Her performance was impacting the whole team, and my job was literally to keep the team on track. I get that people can be under pressure, that there can be stuff going on at home which impacts work, and that sometimes people need a bit of help. But if every time I ask about a project you say, yep, everything's good, I've got it under control, and then it all falls apart, and your only response is to blame the client, we have a problem. I explained that I wasn't going to start formal performance management or anything like that, but from now on, I'd like her to check in with me on Monday mornings for 10 minutes to go over objectives for the week and to check if she needed support with any of her clients. I know it isn't fun to be micromanaged, so I tried to keep these check-ins short and mostly just offer assistance on stuff. She clearly hated my guts though, and apparently was hatching her own pro-revenge. Now, part of my role included use of a purchasing card, which wasn't in my name, but I had access to. I was given the card to basically make small purchases for the office or spend up to $500 on clients. The card was kept in an office I shared with another team manager where we both could access it when we needed it. One day I get a call from accounts asking about a few abnormal purchases on the card, a Photoshop subscription, a couple of Uber Eats orders, an HBO subscription, etc. I say I didn't know anything about them and they should check with the other team manager. Apparently, the other team manager didn't know anything about them either, because after the weekend, I get called into the big boss's office. After my colleague and I had denied involvement, accounts had started calling Adobe and Uber and stuff to find out where the transactions were coming from. They said that not only were the accounts in my name, they were registered to an email address with my name in it too. I can't describe what it felt like to be in that meeting. I felt physically sick. I couldn't work out what was happening. I was so shocked I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was about to get fired and I couldn't understand how that was even possible. The director was going on about how access to the card was a privilege and that I had signed an agreement about appropriate use and so on and so forth. I denied that I had been using it inappropriately and the boss listened, but I could tell he wasn't that convinced. To be honest, in my head, I was gaslighting myself and worrying that I had somehow saved the card in Google and maybe my wife had been accidentally using it or something. It was terrible, and I found myself apologizing and saying, I don't know how this happened. I assure you that I know that none of these expenses are appropriate uses of company funds. There must have been some kind of mistake. Can I please have the details and look into it, etc. When I finally got out of that office, job still intact, barely, Evil was waiting for me at my office door. She was grinning from ear to ear and sweetly explained she had been waiting for our morning meeting. I told her something had come up and we'd do the meeting tomorrow, and she said, "Oh, will you be in tomorrow?" Confused, because I didn't know I was in a pro-revenge thread at the time, I just replied, "Yes, why would I not be in tomorrow?" And she just sipped her tea and said, "Oh, no reason," turned around and went back to her desk. Something felt off, but I was still worrying about what had happened with the boss, so I spent the next couple of hours calling my wife, calling Adobe, and doing the same legwork that accounts had done. It became very obvious that someone had been using my name and the company card to spend a bunch of money online. Had I been hacked or something? Personal info on the dark web, and these hackers just really wanted Photoshop and Wendy's delivered. It was the Uber Eats that was her undoing. After getting on the phone and talking through what had gone on, and obviously giving my name for the account and everything, the fellow on the phone told me where the food had been delivered. It was in our city, which made me rule out straight away any notion of my data being sold online or something. Now I was suspicious and upset. I don't like to think the worst of people, but now I was. Listening to my gut, I pulled up Evil's employee information and checked her address. I pulled it up on Google Maps, dropped a pin on her place, and then looked for the address Uber Eats had given me. It was the corner of her block. I was furious. When she left work for the day, I got IT to give me access to her laptop. Sure enough, when I opened up her domain.com account, under her listed accounts was the email address with my name on it. There were some things she had been smart about. The IP address she had been using was the office, which would have tied back to me. She had even had the food delivered to a different address. She had even made a fake email address, but saving her passwords on a work computer was a mistake. I called the boss that night and explained what I had found, and kept the IT guy with me to support the fact that I hadn't just logged into her computer and made it all up. The next day, the boss called her into the office and fired her so bad there were red trucks lining up outside the building. When she teary-eyed left the office, I made sure I was standing in the hall sipping a cup of tea. It had gotten cold while I waited for her, but still tasted sweet. I hope she went home that night, because if she did, she would have received some nice goodbye Wendy's delivered by Uber Eats. Paid for on my personal card, of course. Revenge and justice can be the same thing, right? In the end, she was fired. The boss apologized, and we were on good terms when I left in October for a new gig. She never apologized, and I haven't seen her since. The boss decided not to get police involved, and neither did I. Just didn't want the hassle. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter the truth of how I felt when I was pregnant with her? I'm 52, female, and my daughter, who's 28, is expecting her first kid with her husband in June. I'm very excited to be a grandmother. My daughter is very, very excited and cannot wait to be a mother. She already has the nursery all picked out, started buying clothes, getting toiletries such as nappies and wipes organized, the works. We have a very close relationship, and she texts me about her first kicks, baby heartbeats. She has this thing called a Doppler, potential names, etc. I'm thrilled she's so excited and happy because in all honesty, it was the very opposite of how I felt. The truth is, I hated being pregnant with both of my kids. Pregnancy honestly scared me. I was anxious all the time. Every movement and lack of made me scared. I hated the feeling of being so heavy and limited in movements. On top of all the normal pregnancy symptoms of fatigue, nausea, swollen ankles, hemorrhoids, sore back and feet, etc. And then don't get me started on the childbirth, which was next level. Don't get me wrong, I was very excited to become a mom and I love both my kids. They're my absolute world. I just didn't like the process to get there. One thing she bought was one of those baby memory books and has already started by putting some photos of her bump and ultrasound photos in them. For fun, she dug out the baby books I had for both her and her younger brother, and we looked through them for a trip down memory lane. For both books, I started at the newborn stage. The pages for 20-week bump and first ultrasound, etc. are both blank. My daughter asked why this was the case. She always thought maybe it was the lack of technology of the time. For you youngins out there, yes, we did have cameras and ultrasounds in the 90s. This is when I told her the truth, that I hated being pregnant. It made me scared and anxious, and I didn't want any memories of it. Pregnancy and childbirth terrified me, even for her younger brother when I had a bit more of an idea. I also explained why I was so happy to see her so happy, because I didn't want her to feel like I did. She got very quiet and didn't seem very engaged the rest of the time looking at the books. When she left to go home, she seemed a bit distant. Later that night, my son-in-law called me to say my daughter was very upset about what I had said. Apparently, I made her feel unwanted, like she was a burden to bear. I was shocked and upset to hear that myself, because that was the opposite of how I felt, and told my son-in-law that. I explained I love my daughter and her brother very much, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. I just didn't like being pregnant, but that doesn't mean my kid was not wanted. My son-in-law understood, but still said my daughter is upset. Am I the jerk for confessing my feelings? I feel very guilty, and the last thing I wanted to do was stress my pregnant daughter out. A time when stress and feeling upset needs to be kept to a minimum. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. You want me to email you everything? Sure. So this is from back when I was in college. I was working a job on campus and my manager moved on to a different organization and was replaced by someone else who we'll call Karen. Now our team of 10 students worked super well, very efficient, and got everything as expected. Karen comes in and decides that the team needs to change the way we work. So she makes massive changes and makes our lives harder, but it's all part of the job and we deal with it. Also, I was the unofficial leader of the team and constantly advocated for my team. We were close and we knew what worked for each of us, and the rest of the team looked to me as a leader. So obviously Karen hated me because I'd advocate against stupid policies that had no benefit but only made our life harder. Each of us had a weekly one-on-one meeting with Karen to discuss the stuff we got done, needed to get done, etc. As always, I went in with an agenda, made sure she got all the updates I had, made sure she answered all my questions, made sure I answered all her questions, and then ensured I had a 5-minute space at the end for her to discuss anything she had to talk to me about. 2 weeks into the changes, she tells me that I've not been updating her properly. Surprised, I ask her what updates I didn't give, and as she lists it out, I point to the agendas of our previous 2 meetings and show her that I did discuss it. She says that verbal updates aren't acceptable and I need to email them to her. I'm confused, but I know how to pick my battles and agree to it. In fact, she writes me up for not properly communicating with her, not giving her updates, and not keeping her in the loop about my work, so I'm ticked off. After the meeting, I check with my team, and this isn't the setup for anyone. Everyone gives her verbal updates and sometimes emails them, but there's no real rule for it to be an email every time. So I decide to follow her policies as she stated. That evening, I send her a long email with the details of everything I got done over the last 2 weeks. The next day onwards, every day when I clock in, I send her an email with my tasks for the day. As I complete tasks, I update her via email, and if I'm stuck on something, update her on that too. I CC her on all the emails I send, and also send her an email at the end of the day with what I didn't get done. Now this doesn't take me long because I write most of these emails in my own tracker, so it's just a matter of copy and pasting. However, When writing in my tracker, I do it on my time, but since this is a work-related task, I must do it on the clock. So not only is she getting approximately 15 emails a day from me, she also is paying me for about 1 extra hour each day. This matters later. Given how new Karen is, she doesn't realize that I have built a mini network with some of her colleagues given my time in this job, and I find out that Karen now has a habit of ignoring all emails from me. Also matters later. I don't care about it because I'm now getting paid for stuff I was doing on my own time. A couple of months or so later, our department has to host an event. The tasks are divided and all is good. The 2 tasks I have to manage are the food for all of the guests and to provide parking tickets to the guests in advance. Large university, parking office is a pain to work with. I get the parking done and then I focus on the food the week before the event because we only got final confirmations then. I realize that there are several guests who have various dietary restrictions. I also am suddenly told that a few of the guests are in wheelchairs. They told me that because they needed specific parking spots, but our venue is not accessible. Given the importance of this, I immediately email her. But knowing that she ignores my emails, I CC the parking team to ensure they have a consolidated list because Karen obviously won't send it, and the person managing guests during the event, so they know to ask Karen about the special meals when the guests arrive. We don't have any more one-on-ones before the event, so I try to figure out how to tell her to make sure the guests aren't affected. I try to schedule a meeting with her, but given that she's ignoring my emails, she is also ignoring all my meeting requests. So I give up and decide to enjoy the fireworks during the event. The reason I need to talk to her is that I need the budget increase to accommodate these multiple dietary restrictions. Gluten-free meals plus nut-free meals all really add up, and we were at the max of my permitted budget already. Essentially, we had a meal budget of say $20 a person, but these special meals cost $25 a person. One thing that makes doing this difficult for me is that as much as I hate Karen, I do not have the ability to let that hate for Karen affect other people. So I spoke to facilities to get a ramp kept in the back room for the wheelchairs and found that about 5 of the people coming had not picked meals, so we didn't have to offer them meals. Got the caterers to set it up so we could provide a reduced offering to those 5 while ensuring that the gluten and nut-free meals were available for those who had asked. Day of the event. The guests in wheelchairs arrive and are stuck at the entry to the event that has 3 steps. Given that I'm managing the food, no one thinks to blame me, so Karen is frantically running around trying to find someone to throw under the bus because our boss is chewing her out. Then I hear the words, gluten intolerant. 20 seconds later, Karen and her boss are in my face, ready to chew me out. I was fully prepared for this, and the conversation went something like this. Karen and the boss. Didn't you know we have people who cannot eat either of the standard meals? Me. Yes, I did. I emailed you about it because we needed to increase the meal budget to accommodate that. Did you not speak to the caterers? Karen. I didn't get any such email. While her boss gives her a look. Me. I sent it to you, see? I show her the email on my phone. Boss. Karen? Karen, in literal tears because this event is her boss's baby, and people have gotten in a lot of trouble over messing up this event. But you didn't send it to me, did you? Boss, very mad. What do we do now? Me. Let me figure something out. Also, I see people in wheelchairs. What are we doing about them? Boss. No clue. We're trying to figure it out. Me. I'll take care of that too. 10 minutes later. Me to the boss. I got facilities to give us a ramp that we're putting by the stairs for the guests in the wheelchair. And I spoke to caterers and we'll have the gluten-free and nut-free meals ready. Boss to me. Thanks. 2 days later, I had my one-on-one with Karen. Surprisingly, her boss was there. Lo and behold, Karen got written up, my write-up was removed, Karen stopped trying to mess with me, and the entire team now has laughs every time we mention a gluten allergy. Am I the jerk for punishing my son for how he reacted to my pregnancy announcement? I, female 36, divorced my ex-husband 6 years ago. We have a 16-year-old son together, Jamie. I remarried to my current husband and have a 10-year-old stepson, Nick. Jamie and Nick are close and get along most of the time as well. Nick depends on Jamie in a lot of things, like helping him do homework, fix and organize his toys, cleaning his room, etc. Things have been going great until Jamie started seeing this girl who kept claiming that my husband and I are parentifying him by having him do things for Nick and seemed to be filling his head with nonsense about us taking from Jamie his time and not letting him live like the other kids his age. My husband had a stern talk to her, which caused Jamie to get into a fight with him. Things have been bad since then. I I recently found out that I'm pregnant. We wanted to wait until all my family were together so we could make the announcement. We did it this past Sunday, and everyone was happy and excited for us, except for Jamie, who remained quiet for a few minutes, then loudly asked, "So, am I expected to take care of this one as well?" My husband and I were shocked. We didn't know what to do. My husband stormed out, and I started arguing with Jamie, asking him why he said that. He said that because it was the truth. He feels as if he has some type of responsibility towards Nick because of the things he has to do for him, and felt that he'll do the same for his half-sibling. I told him this is his girlfriend spouting nonsense and brainwashing him because we expect nothing of him, and he was wrong to say that we do. I had to punish him for ruining the announcement and making a scene and making my husband upset. He thought that it wasn't fair he had to get punished for stating an opinion. He blamed my husband for filling my head too, but my husband is innocent in this, except he knew that the girl is being rude and intrusive. It's been a few days, and Jamie has gone completely silent about the whole thing. You're the jerk. The girlfriend was right. Raising Nick is not Jamie's responsibility, and neither is he a free nanny for you to keep avoiding your responsibilities as parents. Definitely, you're the jerk for all this. Hopping on to point out how much of a jerk move it was to not tell Jamie and Nick about the pregnancy in private. Their daily lives are going to be greatly affected, and you don't respect either of their feelings enough to tell them in private? You spring it on them in front of everyone, and then you're shocked this doesn't go smoothly? Awful. And she punishes him for causing a scene and the all-important upsetting the husband. Was there any care that the son was clearly upset with this news? Any in-depth communication? Any heart-to-hearts? Nah. She just had to punish him because the son should just shut up and take it. But that's okay, because by the time the oldest son escapes as soon as he can, the 10-year-old should be just about old enough to take care of the infant. Win-win. You're the jerk. What do parents think happens when you punish a kid for a feeling or expressing a feeling? Like, it's a feeling. It's not stealing your car. You can't ground a kid into a better feeling. So dumb. You're the jerk. Why haven't you taught your 10-year-old how to put away his toys or clean his room on his own? Because now the 16-year-old can do it while the parents create another kid for him to parent. You're the jerk. Your son is right. Helping his brother clean and doing his homework shouldn't be his duty. It's yours. And he's right to be upset seeing himself become a free babysitter for your new one. By the way, parentification is a real issue older siblings have to deal with and isn't a rare reason people do not want kids in the future. Am I the jerk for not letting my boyfriend have a copy of the key to my apartment? Me, female 30, and my boyfriend, male 31, have been dating for 6 months. We met through a mutual friend and things went from there. We do not live together. We do, however, spend enough time, but more outside. A week ago, while we were out with friends, my boyfriend asked if I could make a copy of the key to my apartment. Context: I own an apartment while he rents with friends, and let him have it. I was puzzled. I asked why. He said he might need to stop by alone or with friends when I'm at work or somewhere else. To be honest, I just did not feel like it was a good idea. I asked what business does he have in my apartment when I'm out, and he took offense to that. A few seconds of awkward silence. Then I told him that I don't feel comfortable having anyone at my apartment unless I'm there, and that he gets to have a copy of the key only if he lives there, and that's it. He got quiet the rest of the evening, but after we left, he sent a long wall of text basically criticizing what I said to him and talking about how I don't trust him. I said that I just didn't think he should have a copy unless he's living with me, and he took it as in I was pushing him to move in. But as far as I know, he lives with a bunch of guys paying rent, so not the best living arrangement, and he constantly complains about that. We had an argument, and he insisted that I have no trust in him and that I embarrassed him in front of his friends by declining to let him have a copy of the key. He then hung up and kept sulking. I tried calling him again, but one of his friends picked up and got involved, saying my boyfriend is rightfully upset with me for not treating him as my partner and showing him the respect he deserves. He said me refusing to give him a copy of the key means 1. I don't trust him or his friends, and 2. I think he's a thief or can't be trusted with my belongings. It got overwhelming, and I started thinking I flew off the handle and was unfair to him by my flat-out refusing and then not explaining my point. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why would he need to stop by, alone or with friends, if you weren't there? That's very sketchy. The fact that he keeps pushing is extra sketchy. Sounds like he wants to use your place as his backup hangout spot since he has a bunch of roommates. OP. No idea, but as far as I know, his friends are, despite being over 30, reckless, and I definitely wouldn't want them in my place without me there. It doesn't really matter what he wants to use the key for. It's your place, and you don't want to give him a key. Am I the jerk for being upset at my significant other for being too friendly with my high school bully? Me, 26, male, and my girlfriend, 26, female, met in high school. We became really good friends. She was basically my only friend in school and decided to go to the same university so we wouldn't drift apart. When we were in university, I finally asked her out. We started dating since. To sum up my time in high school, it was an awful time. I was very lonely, introverted, and quiet, both in high and middle schools, so I was prone to getting bullied. I was mostly heavily bullied by this guy, let's call him Lewis, and his group of friends. He would poke fun at my eye condition, intentionally embarrass and make me uncomfortable in front of everyone, call me all kinds of names, and just made my life in school heck. This was majorly traumatizing because school was supposed to be a safe place for me because I was being mistreated by my crappy family at home, but he ruined any chances of it being a safe place by making every day horrible. My girlfriend was aware of the bullying situation at the time, and when we became closer friends, she always comforted me about it and sympathized with me when I vented about it. She agreed that they were cruel for no reason and I didn't deserve it at all. Told me that she hated them for hurting me like that. Fast forward to now and what the problem actually is. We were out together walking the dog, and I told her I'd jog to a nearby store real quick, pick up some cigarettes, and come back while she stayed at the park. When I was walking back, I noticed her talking to someone from a distance. She seemed to be all cheerful and laughing. They talked for a bit, and he walked away in the opposite direction. So I came up to her and asked her what's up. She nonchalantly smiles and tells me it was Lewis from high school. My heart sank, not gonna lie. I awkwardly chuckled and said, "Whoa, you were seriously that happy to talk to that guy?" She says, "Sure." I told her, "You do remember he was the person that basically made my life a living heck in high school, right?" She told me, "Yeah, I remember, but I'm sure he has changed and he seemed really sweet. Come on, don't be like that." I got pretty mad at that point and didn't say anything. She notices the awkward silence and says, "Aw, dude, come on. Do you seriously still have a grudge against him? I thought you would get over it by now." Holy cow, that really hurt. It's not that easy to get over years of trauma that sabotaged my self-esteem and confidence. It was so hurtful to hear that coming from her, especially because she was my rock during the times I was being mistreated by everyone at school and home. I don't still hate the guy and his friends after all the time that has passed or want them to suffer or whatever, but it's not easy at all to forget what they did to me. Sure, maybe they changed for the better, but seeing her talk to him so cheerfully and tell me about it made me really hurt inside. Am I the jerk for this? Update. I thought I should post a follow-up since tons of people saw the other post and are probably curious what happened. Basically, everything was kind of tense between us after we went home yesterday. When I woke up the next morning, my girlfriend told me we needed to talk, and I agreed. I was going to ask her first, but she beat me to it. She asked me if I was still upset about yesterday, so I told her that I was, and explained that hearing that he's a sweet guy from her was really painful, especially when she knew about the stuff he did to me. I told her that being friendly like that towards people who tormented me wasn't something I accept, and obviously explained that her "get over it" comment was out of pocket and unnecessary. I told her how much him becoming a better person was kind of irrelevant to me, because no matter how much he changed, the consequences of his actions will stick with me. She listened to me explaining, and she started crying in the middle of it, and said she was incredibly sorry and that she didn't think too much of it at the moment and failed to consider my feelings. She said after I explained it from my point of view, she realized she was being the jerk, and it was a stupid assumption that the trauma would go away over time and I would forget about it. We understood where each of us was coming from, and I did forgive her. She was very genuine about it. I know she's not a malicious person and wouldn't want to intentionally hurt me, even if it did hurt. There was a bunch of people telling me to break up with her in the comments, and I see why to some other people this would look like a complete deal breaker. But in my opinion, relationships obviously come with their ups and downs, misunderstandings, conflicts like this one. So I want to forgive her for this and move on, especially when she realized what she did was wrong and apologized. If she hadn't, it would be a completely different thing. She told me she doesn't want to keep in contact with him after this and doesn't care about him at all. Even told me she wants to block him on the socials they exchanged, and I said that was up to her. So far, everything seems to be okay, and I feel like this helped our relationship in terms of setting boundaries and respecting them, and I'm glad we were able to talk it out. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.